Well, let's go ahead and get started then. It is 6 o'clock and I will call the meeting to order. Miss Elisha, will you please call the roll for us?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. We'll start tonight's roll call as usual with Councilmember Adams.
Present.
Benjamin.
Present.
Mayor Brockett is absent. Councilmember Folkers.
Present.
Marquis.
Present.
Shuhar.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Present.
Councilmember Wallach.
Present.
And Weiner.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem, we have our quorum.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. We have two declarations that we'll start off with tonight. Councilmember Marquis, will you please present the Immigrant Heritage Month Declaration?
Thank you. So this is a declaration for Immigrant Heritage Month for June 2024. Immigrant Heritage Month celebrates the generations of immigrants from every corner of the globe who have built our country's economy, created the unique character of our city, and are linked in a shared history. Immigrants have come here to work, to learn, and to find freedom and shelter. They are an important part of Colorado's history, and they continue to keep the workforce competitive, businesses innovative, and the economy strong. In addition to economic contributions, immigrants bring diverse perspectives and experiences that make for a unique social and cultural influence, fundamentally enriching the extraordinary character of our community. Immigrants have not only been steadfast leaders in securing their own rights and access to equal opportunity, but have also campaigned to create a fairer and more just society for all. Yet, despite these countless contributions, the role of immigrants in building and advancing our nation has frequently been overlooked and undervalued throughout our history and continuing to the present day. 1 in 10 Boulder County residents is an immigrant, and this exceptional group of people adds to the variety of languages, customs, and cuisines, which contributes to the cultural diversity enjoyed in the city. The City Council of the City of Boulder, Colorado, declares June 2024 as Immigrant Heritage Month and urge all to join in recognizing the distinct value that lies in welcoming people of different backgrounds and treating all with dignity and respect.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Folkers will now present the Pride Month Declaration, and we have Juan Marcano from Rocky Mountain Equality here to receive the declaration, and you may join Councilmember Folkers in front of the dais.
Thank you, and thank you, Juan, for joining me up here. The first Pride was a riot. More than 50 years ago, the Stonewall Uprising was a 5-day clash between patrons of the Stonewall Inn and New York City police who had raided the bar and began beating and arresting people. It wasn't the first time the Stonewall Inn and other establishments for gay people were raided, but this time, hundreds of people decided to fight back. There is a tendency to look back at history through rose-colored glasses, but it is important to memorialize the realities, the pain, and the discomfort, because important changes generally don't come from asking nicely. Through this resistance, the LGBTQ+ rights movement in America was born. During the LGBTQ+ Pride Month, we commemorate the events of June 1969 and commit to achieving equality, justice under the law for LGBTQ+ individuals. Boulder has a diverse LGBTQ+ community that includes people of many ethnicities, religions, and professions, and we consider diversity to be a community asset that enhances and enriches the lives of every resident, worker, visitor, and student in our city. LGBTQ+ individuals are our teachers, baristas, volunteers, tech workers, current, future leaders, and elders. They keep our community going while dealing with anti-LGBTQ+ bias and discrimination that persists even here in Boulder and that is growing across the country. We are grateful for the work of local advocacy groups such as the Equality I'm sorry, the name change. It says out Boulder County in the declaration. The Equality Center, OASOS, the Pride Office at CU Boulder, Queer Asterix, and A Queer Endeavor that support our LGBTQ plus community members, many of whom have intersecting marginalized identities that are not always honored and celebrated in our city. Although other states and even the United States Supreme Court are taking away or limiting the rights of LGBTQ plus individuals and families, advocacy from the LGBTQ plus community here in Boulder County and allies across the state led some significant victories this year. The Colorado legislature passed a bill requiring schools to honor students' chosen names. Additionally, our legislature passed a resolution that refers a ballot measure to Colorado voters to remove language banning same-sex marriage from the Colorado state constitution. While this language became obsolete after the Supreme Court's ruling protecting the right to same-sex marriage nationwide in 2015, it's imperative to amend the state constitution to remove this language in the event that the Supreme Court overturns its previous ruling. We thank everyone in the LGBTQ plus community who continues to work to keep yourself and our community going. In many respects, there has been profound success in the rights, protections, and general community acceptance of LGBTQ plus people in the past 55 years. As our city celebrates Pride this month, we not only honor our LGBTQ plus communities and advocacy organizations for their continued work to achieve equity in our systems, we also restate our commitment to this ongoing work to promote and protect everyone in our community, regardless of gender or sexuality. Remembering difference isn't wrong. It's central to what makes our community beautiful and deserves to be celebrated. We, the City Council of the City of Boulder, Colorado, declare June 2024 as Pride Month. We urge all residents to live their best, most bold lives and to stand up against injustice in all its forms, because a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And with that, I would like to invite you, Juan, to say a few words.
Thank you so much to City Council and the City of Boulder for being continuously supportive, not just of Pride Month, but Rocky Mountain Equality, formerly known as Out Boulder County, and of course the LGBTQ plus community. We are very grateful to receive your support, and hopefully we can see you at the Boulder Festival next Sunday the 30th at Central Park.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Our city clerk will now go over the public participation guidelines and slides prior to the opening of our open comment.
Thank you, Lisa, for bringing those up. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. We appreciate your presence. I'll now go over the public participation guidelines at City Council meetings. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and council, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement processes, please visit our website at bouldercolorado.gov/services/productive-atmospheres. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. Our remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before they are allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. In-person participants are asked to refrain from expressing support or disagreement verbally or with applause, with the exception of declarations. Traditionally, support is shown silently through American Sign Language applause or jazz hands. Thank you again, and we appreciate your presence.
Thank you so much. And I just want to reiterate the rules that we have around noise in council chambers. It really just helps make sure that everybody who is speaking can be heard during their time that they have. 2 minutes is such a short period of time to try to get across a perspective on a complex issue, and it just becomes even harder when folks are unable to be heard. So I'm hoping that we can avoid the need for a recess this week. And as we just heard, using silent reactions like thumbs up, thumbs down, jazz hands rather than speaking out or clapping during open comment will help us avoid a recess. But if the chamber is unable to follow those rules and disrupts the meeting, then we will recess. I'll be stopping speakers at 2 minutes just to ensure everybody has equal time at the podium unless there's some sort of equipment malfunction. If you have any additional comments that don't fit in those 2 minutes, please email us. We do read all of our emails even if we don't always have time to respond. And thank you so much for all being here tonight. Apologies in advance if I mispronounce somebody's name, and you are very welcome to use a second to correct me when you get to the podium if I do. So our first speaker for tonight is Adeline Marquez, followed by Lucy Carlson-Krakoff, and then Glenn Marshman.
Hello? Okay. Hi, my name is Adilene, and I'm here again. Just like we just heard that a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I am advocating for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, highlighting the urgent need to address disability rights, human rights, and women and child rights. The ongoing genocide in Gaza has had devastating impacts. More than 35,000 civilians are dead. Over 14,000 are kids. There are 500,000 children in danger of starvation and a slow death. More than 12,000 have been wounded. And now Gaza has the most disabled kids in the world. This is a humanitarian issue. We've seen people burning alive, dead bodies, decapitated babies, children in shock, people under rubble. I don't know what image will make you act and really pressure the federal government to do something like the immediate ceasefire. This is also a climate change issue, as we know the pollution from bombs and all of that is really detrimental to our land. And it is really scary that it's been so many months of this. This is televised and you all have not taken a stance. Juneteenth teaches us that our liberations are interconnected. The freedom of one is tied to the freedom of all. As we honor the day yesterday, let's extend this solidarity to the children and people of Gaza, advocating for their right to a life free from violence. And by doing so, we would affirm our commitment as a city to justice and equity for children and people everywhere.
Thank you, Adeline. Appreciate your comments. Next up is Lucy Carlson-Krakoff, Glenn Marshman, and then Tila Duhame.
Good evening, Council. I'm Lucy Carlson-Krakoff. I would like to express my utmost support for options A and B regarding the Iris Avenue bike lane. I'm a lifelong Boulder resident, and I actually currently live on Iris Avenue, and I'm almost 100% a bike commuter for many reasons, environmental and social being priorities. Biking down Iris in its current state, that is a little flimsy painted line that only slightly separates me from cars barreling down at 40, 45, 50, I've seen miles an hour, although the speed limit is 35, is dangerous. I fear for my safety while I'm biking down this street. So it is possible to build a protected bike lane. In fact, we've done it right here in Boulder on Folsom Street, where I ride every day to get to work. It's a very positive experience for me and automobiles. So I envision a better future for myself and all other IRIS commuters. Let us imagine a road that works for everyone, children who can't drive yet, bus riders on RTD, people with disabilities who can't drive, bike riders, pedestrians, and yes, even automobile drivers. And I look forward to working with you all on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Glenn Marshman, then Tila Duhame, and Michael Benjamin.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Glenn Marshman, and I want to talk about the Boulder Municipal Airport. I'm a native of Boulder and been flying out of the Boulder Airport for over 50 years. I soloed my dad's J3 Cub when I was 14 at the Boulder Airport. I'm very much in favor of housing, affordable housing in Boulder. I know it's tough for the workforce to afford to live in Boulder, and we obviously need to do something as far as affordable housing. I don't think decommissioning the airport for affordable housing is a good idea. I have over 15 friends that have learned to fly at Boulder, that have gone to the airlines United, Frontier, and FedEx. We have many pilots that fly in small rural areas of airports that end up flying for commercial airlines. And we know that there's going to be a big shortage of airline pilots coming up in the future. And I think we could do something about that by keeping the airport alive. The flood in 2013, we had the second largest aerial extraction next to Katrina. There were hundreds of men camping at the airport that were deployed daily during the flood, for the flood victims, for help the flood victims. The same for the fires we have had over the years. We also have medevac helicopters based at the Boulder Airport that fly daily. I'd hate to lose that in the future. The cost involved in decommissioning the airport would put the infrastructure and the legal fees to fight the FAA before anything even got built would cost hundreds of millions of dollars to the city of Boulder. I believe that Area 3 would be a much better, viable alternative for affordable housing. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you for your comments, Glenn. Next up, we have Tila Duhame, Michael Benjamin, and then Josh Joseph.
Good evening, Council. It is so lovely to see your faces. I'm so glad we're in the room together again. I'm Tila Duhame. I am your chair of the Transportation Advisory Board, but I'm just here tonight, little old me, and I'm here to talk about the Iris Avenue plans. So the B360 happened a couple weekends ago, and I'm on the route. I live on the route. And so I just kind of trotted out that morning a couple of sawhorses and plocked down a bit of plywood and put a little tablecloth on it, and I offered some lemonade and some iced tea. And people stopped, and they were free to stop. But I also happened to have pictures of the 4 options, A, B, C, and D for Iris Avenue. And I sort of raided my blank card drawer and said, hey, if you want to write a love letter to council, if you have any thoughts about it, here you go, and I'll deliver them for you. So I'm here to deliver these to you tonight. I have 54 of them. I collected these in about a little over 2 hours, let's say 2.5 hours. The next night, Better Boulder had a little event at Twisted Pine, and I brought my stack along and a few other blanks, and I got maybe another 5 or so. So that's about every 3 minutes for the people that I talked to. Lots of people took a beverage, talked, and left and went on their way. But for the people who stopped to write these letters, it was remarkable. They almost wrote themselves. Here's basically what I told them. I said, Iris Avenue will be changing. Council has decided that it needs to change, and it's a priority corridor. Here are the 4 options, but it's basically a mosaic of 2 different things. One, should it happen now, and we use whatever the available road width is? Or B, should we essentially adapt it as a road widening project? And that's going to be difference in time and difference in money. And then the other decision was, where does that protected bike lane go? Should it be squished together as a cycle track or on either side of the road? And it was so unanimous. People wanted change now. They really didn't care whether the cycle track was smooshed on one side or the other. Thank you, Tila. I would love to
You can email us pictures. You can leave those as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we can look at them. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Michael Benjamin, and then Josh Joseph, and then Margot Crow.
I'm curious, is City Council allowed to do jazz hands if you all agree with something I say? Does that happen? Okay, great. My name is Michael Benjamin. I've lived in Boulder for over 15 years. I just want to say thank you for listening to me and other citizens during this open comment session. I know it can't be easy to have people come in here who don't know all about the political process, tell you how to do your jobs better. But that's why I'm here, so I'll get into it. I came to talk about funding for the arts. Based on recent articles I've read, it sounds like the general fund support for the city's budget for the Office of Arts and Culture is going to be eliminated. I'm opposed to this decision, and I believe many people who live in Boulder would also be, and I'm asking you to reconsider this. I am a little biased. I make my living creating artwork for businesses. I'm an adjunct teacher at CU, and I teach an art class, and my 3-year-old daughter also loves art. We view art as a luxury, but I think it's actually essential to keeping Boulder culturally relevant and economically vital. We want a vibrant city, but we just can't have banks and hotels and tech companies. We need new innovations from the minds of artists. We want to attract people from all over, but we just can't rely on our proximity to nature. We need the new and energetic experiences that come from artists. We want a safe and diverse city. We just can't hope and pray that inspiring people come here. We need to create a creatively welcoming environment for artists of all different backgrounds. So again, just please understand that support for the arts will give us exponential results for the community, for local businesses, for our entire city. And the future of our town depends on what you decide this year. So what I'm asking is that you support at least 1% of the city's budget for arts and culture initiatives. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Michael. Next up, Josh Joseph, Margot Crow, and Gary Brenner.
Hey folks, I'm here to talk about this hot new thing called affordable housing. You might have heard of it. So to contextualize it, I want to talk a bit about Boulder. So median home price is about $1.4 million right now, which is bananas, similar to San Jose, Silicon Valley Tech Hub. So let's break that down monthly, assuming A, I can put down a small down payment of $300,000, and B, I have perfect credit. That's over $7,000 per month, or $84,000 per year in post-tax income. In other words, if I made $115,000 pre-tax, that's 100% of my money. So if we were to follow the typical rule of thumb, which says my household should make approximately 3 times my mortgage to be financially secure, I need to make about $252,000. It's insane. So it's clear why Boulder has 60,000 in-commuters daily. Boulder excludes its working class, forcing them to adjacent cities because Boulder has historically made injurious land use decisions. Should Boulder be a city for the top 5%? I recently graduated with a master's from CU Boulder, focused on urban planning, resiliency, sustainability. And I'm looking at roles at the city, locally, and then at the state. And mid-level roles typically offer around $5,000 to $6,000 per month, which is $1,000 short of if I put 100% of my money towards a mortgage. I've got a bunch of friends, similarly graduated, very intelligent, can't fathom affording a condo or a home. It's a temporary place for us. So this is why I see an opportunity in decommissioning the airport and building affordable, dense, mixed-use housing instead. Land use is a zero-sum game, and the airport is a fundamental misuse of about 200 acres of land. It's being used to store planes in a city where people are desperate for housing. So I encourage our council members to publicly endorse the 2 airport neighborhood campaign ballot measures, and by doing so, you show your sensibilities lie with normal working people.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate your comments. Next up, Margot Crow and Gary Brenner, and then Gil Gilmore. Is Margot here? All right. Let's go with Gary Brenner. And then we'll have Gil Gilmore and Marcus Poppets.
Hello, I'm Gary Brenner. I'm here to talk about the Gregory Creek Flood Mitigation Project. And I want to make 3 points. The first one is the plan that's currently being put together and that you'll be presented with probably will not produce any flood mitigation benefits at all on Gregory Creek. None. Now, why is that? The reason is it's designed to handle 570 cubic feet per second. The flood that we saw in 2013 was at least 2,000 cubic feet per second. So that 570 cubic feet per second wouldn't scratch the surface on that flood. Now, when you get to the smaller floods, and I've been here for 40 years, and I've experienced a lot of floods, those floods are a little bit messy, but they don't cause property damage and they don't threaten life. So if we build this size of a project, we're going to be handling floods that are too small to harm us, and we won't be able to handle the floods that are big enough that we should be handling. Now, the good news is that there is a solution. The solution is to develop a response plan and to plan to set up temporary barriers when we have a bad flood. Now, my third point is that response plan idea actually has some historical precedent that tells us it'll work. In 2013, my neighbors set up some diversions on 7th Street and were able to succeed in diverting the water. Now, those diversions were set up in an ad hoc fashion by ordinary people and had dramatic effects. Just think how much better we could do if we had our professional utility department doing that, and we planned that in advance. By the way, I see that I'm joined here by 3 members of the community who live near Gregory Creek who are here because they're interested in the creek. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Next up, we have Gil Gilmore, Marcus Poppets, and then Rob Smoke.
Hello, my name is Gil Gilmore. I'm here to talk about the airport. My name is Gil Gilmore. I'm 13 years old. I have a airplane washing business. All the monies from that business go into a saving to pay for flight lessons. I'm a member of the Experimental Aircraft Association, Boulder Chapter 1627, and the Vintage Aircraft Association, Boulder Chapter 42. In August 2019, at 8 years old, I took my first flight at Boulder Municipal Airport, BDU, along with many other kids like myself. These flights were made possible through the Boulder EAA Chapter 1627 and volunteer pilots who generously volunteered their time and aircraft. I could talk about the safety the airport provides for the community, but I instead would like to talk about the community that the airport provides. Every Saturday, the airport hosts Young Eagles. Every first Saturday of the month, the airport hosts Young Eagles rallies with tens of kids every single time that go up for their first flight because they love aviation. Recently, last Saturday, we had our airport day with hundreds of people from the Boulder community that came out to the airport to watch planes and just hang out at the airport. Sometimes when I'm watching planes there, I see a parent with their kid come out and just sit and watch the airplanes. I think the airport is essential to the Boulder community, and that is why I would encourage you to look at the facts instead of solely focusing on emotion. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here tonight, Gil. Next up, we've got Marcus Poppets, Rob Smoke, and then Laura Kaplan.
Hello, my name is Marcus Popetz. I live at 2197 Jordan Place, which is at 22nd and Iris, 1 block north of Iris. I'm here to support options A and B and to laud you for your efforts of leading us through this process, because I went through the Folsom process, and while I love the bike lanes, I don't envy you the possible vitriol that may come your way. But I did want to attach a human face to it because I've lived there since my kids were little. Their schools have always been on the south side of Iris. They would bike to school every day, and I rode with them to school 3 years longer than I probably would have because of Iris. because even though we have a protected crossing, we see cars blow that at 45 miles an hour. It's hard to slow down. And then, fast forward a few years, my son was going to middle school and coming back in a snowstorm and actually got hit crossing Iris on his bicycle. And it's those types of things that, like, emotionally, I would love to just keep in your minds when we're going through this process, because we can get caught up in traffic speeds and such, but really we're talking about the safety of kids. Now my children are drivers. One has his permit, one has his license. It's kind of terrifying watching them try to pull out onto Iris. So now we come into the driving phase of things, and it's kind of scary. So I'd love to see something happen in time to actually protect my family and the families that are coming up soon. I spend about 20% of my time biking, 80% riding. I'm in favor of the turn lane and the bikes, but I'm almost more on the side of cars this time, of like, I want it to slow down so I can get out of my neighborhood safely, and so my kids can as well. Obviously, I'd love it to be bike safety as well. But I just wanted to, encourage you to keep that in mind, because I know it's the vision of Boulder to stop people from getting hurt, but it's not going to stop if we don't slow down the traffic there. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate your comments. Next up, we have Rob Smoke, then Laura Kaplan, and then Claudia Thiem.
Good evening. My name is Rob Smoke. I live in Boulder. I've been here most of the time since 1986. When I was here for the hearing, well, it wasn't really a hearing. It was just public comment and so forth about a possible ceasefire in Palestine. I heard passionate responses saying that violates the principles of good governance. I heard that from Mr. Wallach and Matt Benjamin. I'm sure, controvert that with me if you disagree, but that's what I heard, that, the principles of good governance really require focus on local issues, most of what's on the agenda tonight. And I just watched over the last couple of days information provided by the UN Council on Human Rights, saying that it's essentially an established fact that there is genocide occurring in Gaza. And also an aid worker from UNICEF talked about aid workers not being admitted to northern Gaza right now. And of course, all Western media is blockaded, in addition to the aid that desperately is needed there. And I would just say that all the principles of good governance are effectively counterfeited when that kind of stuff is happening in the world. And we say, oh, it's not really us. We're not responsible. It's not our business, and so forth. I just think that's dead wrong. I think that's miserable governance. People have come here asking for representation on a different kind of scale, and they're not getting
Thank you,
it.
Rob.
So
Your time is up, but you're
I'm
welcome
finished.
to email us the
I'm
rest of your
finished.
comments. Thank you.
I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you
for giving me the time.
Next up, we've got Laura Kaplan, Claudia Thiem, and Michelle Rodriguez.
Good evening, Council. Laura Kaplan here to give an update on the Airport Neighborhood Campaign in my personal capacity. As you're all aware, our 2 petitions were certified sufficient by our lovely city clerk, Ms. Johnson, on June 12th. And as I understand it, you have some options for next steps that are coming up for you as a council in August. And one of those options is to propose amendments to our petitions. And I was asked, would our campaign consider working with you on amendments? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. We'd be interested in anything that you'd want to propose that is consistent with the intent of our 2 petitions. If you can help us make it better, we're all for it. I also wanted to report back to you about the Get the Lead Out webinar that we hosted, and a big thank you to Councilmember Wallach, who was able to attend. Some of the rest of you requested the recording, so we will get that recording out to all of you along with a transcript. I do hope that you'll be able to watch the video and or read the transcript and think pretty seriously about the implications for us here in Boulder about the experience that they had in Santa Clara County at Reed Hillview Airport and the study that they conducted. and what it means for us in terms of how the city protects public health, especially for children. There's more to talk about here than we can cover in just a couple minutes, but I wanted to just briefly say, Reed Hillview Airport and the Santa Clara County Commissioners have really blazed a trail in how to get off of the leaded aviation fuel and transition to the unleaded. And they have not suffered litigation. They have not been fined by the FAA for doing that. Another point that was made during the webinar by Dr. Lanfear, one of the researchers, is that every jurisdiction should not have to do their own study on this. There have been multiple studies. The findings are consistent. Leaded aviation fuel is a hazard to human health, especially for children. And the EPA concurred with that and issued an endangerment finding, which they did not do lightly. So our campaign,
Thank you, Laura.
I'll email you.
Yep, please. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Next up is Claudia Thiem, and then Michelle Rodriguez, and then we will move over to our virtual participants. Frances Collins will be the first one there.
Okay. Good evening, members of council. My name is Claudia Hansen Thiem. I wear a lot of hats in the Boulder community. I'm speaking tonight for myself as a North Boulder parent and mobility advocate. So like several of the previous speakers, I wanted to share a few thoughts on the Iris Avenue transportation improvements that you're going to be discussing next week. I travel a lot, both along and across the Iris corridor by car, by bike, by bus, and when I'm more disciplined about running, by foot. I also have kids who are becoming more independently mobile, and I want them and their peers to have abundant, safe options for moving around their city. So right now, the narrow sidewalks and bike lanes on Iris make it a hostile environment for anyone who's not in a car, and the 4-lane design there generates high speeds that make those problems worse. It's also a barrier between neighborhoods that make amenities and gathering places, like the ball fields, our rec center, multiple schools, and community gardens, feel harder to reach than they actually are. I fully support a 3-lane configuration as an approach that increases safety for vulnerable road users and reduces the barriers to crossing. And it's a goal that can be accomplished in our lifetimes. And as a regular driver in this corridor, I think that these goals are absolutely worth a few seconds of my time. I also want to say that I appreciate the work that city staff has done to research this best practice of 3 lanes with that center turn lane, especially given how it's being received in our community. This is a big lift, and I hope it does get easier as we get some proof points for these concepts. It's not easy, to start big projects like the core arterial network, and these first steps are always the hardest, but we are creating pieces of a network that will make a real difference in how the next generation navigates this city. And I think it's important that we keep moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Appreciate your comments. We've got Michelle Rodriguez next. Is Michelle around? I haven't seen her. Okay, let's move to our virtual speakers then. First up will be Frances Collins, then Louis Amundsen, and then Adrian Fine.
Hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. My name is Frances Collins, and I'm a member of the Boulder Tennis Association and the tennis community in Boulder. And I would like to, or I thank you for the opportunity to talk today about the Boulder tennis situation that is unfolding here. While tennis is experiencing a resurgence nationwide, Boulder is witnessing a dramatic shrinkage in publicly available tennis courts. Despite being one of the top 3 most active tennis metro areas in the country, Boulder has not added a single new public tennis court in over 30 years. This is unacceptable given our growing population and increasing demand for recreational spaces. One of the most pressing issues is the complete lack of publicly accessible indoor courts as well as outdoor courts. This winter will be the first in decades without any indoor courts available to the public, leaving seniors, families, everybody, myself included, with no place to play. The current plan to add a net of 4 new courts at East Boulder Rec Center in the next 4 years is insufficient and fails to address the immediate and long-term needs of our community. The reasons for this decline are many. First, there's a lack of new courts. Boulder Parks and Rec claims that our ratio of public courts to population size is comparable to similar cities. However, this argument is based on a flawed national formula. It fails to consider the high demand for tennis in Boulder compared to tennis neutral states. The result of this false equivalency that justifies inaction. The Boulder Tennis Association has been
Thank you, Francis. Your time is up, but please email us the rest of your comments because we will read them if you send them to us. Next up is Louis Amundson, and then Adrian Fine and Lynn Siegel.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you guys for listening to all the citizens out here. I am also here to advocate for, my name is Louis Amundson, sorry. I'm a Boulder native. I grew up here and grew up playing tennis. I'm here to advocate, as with Francis, for Boulder tennis. She said it pretty well and eloquently. We're kind of in a dire situation where we are kind of, we're by the end of the year, we'll have 29 fewer courts with 0 indoor facilities. I want to touch on a few things that maybe she didn't touch. You know, Boulder is a place that, you know, as far as I've always known, is a place that really prides itself on its diversity, its inclusion. And I think, you know, we're all feeling this potential for tennis to go the route of the kind of the country club way. And that's not how I experienced it growing up here. That's not how I want my kids to experience tennis. So I wanted to just implore you guys to keep in mind that by not adding new courts, by not considering new public facilities that some of our private citizens have offered to fully fund, we are in danger of making tennis an elitist country club sport that we don't want to see that happen. So so yeah, I would just implore you guys to please take a second look. Again, we've had some of our private citizens step up to privately fund a tennis facility here, to just be met with you know, a lot of opposition. So I would implore you guys to please look at this
Thank you,
situation.
Louis. Appreciate your time and your taking time to give us some comments tonight. Next up, we've got Adrian Fine, Lynn Siegel, and then Sarah Cunningham.
Hi, City Council. My name is Adrian Fine. I live in North Boulder, and I drive, bike, and walk Iris regularly. Thank you for studying this issue. A recent opinion on the camera wrote that bikes don't need to be on Iris Avenue, and I completely agree. But neither do cars or commercial vehicles or pedestrians or emergency vehicles. None of them need to be on Iris Avenue. It's tongue in cheek, but the point is that you are studying the allocation of a scarce public resource, and that's a good thing for the future of our community. The great staff report that you'll study in about a week shows that sharing the road with bicyclists and pedestrians can greatly improve their mobility while improving road safety for all users. Option B is simple and effective and is attainable at a reasonable cost and timeline. It provides the most flexibility for emergency services. It also reduces complexity and conflict points for north-south travelers. Although Iris is an east-west corridor, I encourage you to think of it as a north-south divide. Bike and ped volumes are 10x north-south compared to east-west, and that should influence the design and your study. I don't think options C and D should be studied further. They are magnitude more complex, expensive, destructive, and time-intensive. You can either save motorists times, or you can have them drive at safe speeds for other road users, but not both. 2 questions I'd encourage you to sharpen the pencil on. What are the travel time improvements for pedestrians and cyclists under the various scenarios? And second, how do the different scenarios compare for non-signalized driveways and residential egress and entry? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your comments. Next up, Lynn Siegel, Sarah Cunningham, and then Alex Abbott.
Mayor Pro Tem, I do not see Lynn online, but I do have some other names. Lynn, if you are here, please let me know by using the raise hand function or reaching out to me in the Q&A box.
Thank you so much. In the meantime, let's move on to Sarah Cunningham.
We do have one Sarah online without a last name. Sarah, would you mind raising your hand to confirm that it is you? Fabulous.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Um, my name is Sarah, and I'm a long-term resident of Boulder. I'm a single mother and founder of Yours, and which is an app that I'm helping to create affordable housing solutions with. I'm here tonight because I live in Holiday and my community is struggling. I've lived in North Boulder. I've lived in Boulder for over 20 years. I've lived in North Boulder for now about 10 years. The rising costs of living and housing um, to me has become more than just a financial burden. It feels like it's becoming a safety issue at this point. Recently, we've seen an increase in crime in my neighborhood, drive-by shootings, murders, guns being drawn on children, cars being stolen in the middle of the day. I have 3 children. 2 are in college, one's in high school. My children are harassed on their way to the bus stop. I need the bus as a resource for transportation. I have 1 car within my family of 4, and I'm afraid if they cannot use the bus, that it could start to affect their school attendance. This is an isolated incident. This is something that's just common now in my neighborhood, and a direct result of this kind of growing economic strain I think that many of us are facing. I would like to ask City Council to continue to seek new resolutions, new solutions that address the root causes of these problems. I feel, as a long-term resident and
Thank you, Sarah. Your time is up, but I encourage you to email us any additional comments and we will read them. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us tonight. Do we have Lynn online yet?
We do not have Lynn online yet.
Okay, then Alex Abbott, you are next.
I also do not see Alex online, but I do have some other names. Alex, if you are here, please let me know by using the raise hand function or reaching out to me in the Q&A box. I'm not getting any raised hands at this time.
All right, then open comment is now closed. Thank you so much to everybody who took time to come out in person tonight, as well as everybody who joined us online. We really appreciate hearing from you. I want to give our. Oh well, I was gonna go to staff first. So yeah, if that's okay. The city manager or city attorney's office. Is there anything that you would like to respond to?
Thanks so much, Mayor Pro Tem. And before Gil leaves us, I just wanted to thank him for his comments. It's so nice to see a young person coming and being part of civic comment. So thank you for your comments. I'm sure council was going to do it, but I wanted to jump in before he left the door. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I wanted to colloquy on that. Hey, Gil, you were about the age that I was when I started to learn to fly. Yet you showed up tonight far more eloquent and mature and brave than I ever was at that age. So I just wanted to thank you for taking the time on your summer break to be here with us on a Thursday night. So thank you.
Thanks again. With regard to some of the comments today, I appreciate those that came out, and actually I appreciate all the comments as always for those that took the time to share their thoughts with council and with staff. I wanted to remind folks, those that came out and talked about IRIS, we will be speaking about that at our next study session on June 27th. There are many who spoke about the airport as well. We will be speaking to council and to community on July 25th. We heard from those speaking about the current situation about tennis courts, and we understand that there has been a lot of frustration in community about that. I want to say we appreciate those speaking about that. I know that Parks and Recreation has been moving towards the final stages of the court system plan and also preparing for the court development at East Boulder Community Park in 2025. They've also been working hard to explore the possibility of temporary indoor courts through other partnerships, and their plan is to come back to council to report when there is more to share, so stay tuned on that in the future. I wanted to also note that we heard a comment about Gregory Creek Flood Project that is on the consent agenda today. I know you've heard from staff about that as well. I just wanted to continue to lift up that staff continues to work and will continue to converse with community about that project as that moves forward. Regarding the arts budget, I'll say, as we have in the past, staff also believes in the vibrancy of the arts. We support the arts, and we look forward to having a more fulsome discussion with council when we forward our budget to you in August. We are still in the midst of reviewing and crafting the 2025 budget, as no decisions have been made, and so we will be talking and sharing about that recommendation at an appropriate time in the future. And finally, just to the last comment about crime stats, I wanted to remind council, we'd heard previously from our interim chief about crime data that's happening across the city. I know that they are in the midst of looking at, certainly they always look at what's happening across the city, but they had been looking specifically at crime stats in North Boulder and had been talking about shifting priorities in their stratified policing model as it pertains to data, and will likely come back and give council an update, likely written, as they finish that analysis. So just wanted to lift that up. Thank you.
Thank you. And Erin, anything from the city attorney's office? Okay, great. Then I will turn to my colleagues. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything we heard? Yep, I see Mark.
Just one question. I don't know if Joe Tadiucci is here.
He is, yep.
Joe.
Come on down.
Joe.
Here.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the hot seat so early in the meeting. A specific representation was made with respect to the Gregory Creek Flood Mitigation Project in terms of its sufficiency to handle water flows. The claim was made that it was 2,000 cubic feet per second in 2013 versus a projected 500 cubic feet capacity as we have designed it. Is that in fact the case?
Yeah, happy to speak to that. And good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Tadiucci, the Director of Utilities. 570 cubic feet per second is the flow that we're designing for, and that's equivalent to about a 25-year flood level of protection. You might remember from the recent comprehensive flood plan that we approved, we would love to get 100-year protection all across town, but the level of development that's occurred, that's not feasible. To put that in perspective, if you've been watching Boulder Creek during the spring runoff, when it's peaked here in the last few weeks, that's really close to the amount of water that was in Boulder Creek at its peak. Now that's Boulder Creek, which is a big drainage, big watershed, large creek. Gregory Creek is a small drainage, 2 square miles, and so to get that amount of water in that small creek is a significant improvement in the designs. Right now, we estimate the capacity of the creek is about 150 cubic feet per second. We don't have flow gauges on Gregory Creek, so we don't know exactly what it was in 2013. We believe it was a 40 to 50 year event, maybe around 900 cubic feet per second. So there are instances where flooding will occur and exceed any design that we might make, and but it would still be a dramatic improvement to the people along the creek. And I also want to speak, since I'm here, to the emergency response component. I've continued to have that discussion with the community members that are here tonight. It is something we can address and bring our Office of Disaster Management to the community, have a meeting with them, help them get prepared for flooding situations, and that is something that we've offered to do. The way that that was suggested by the public commenter tonight would be really difficult for us to get approval from the agencies that oversee this work, but continue to want to work with the community on the project.
Thank you, Joe. That was a very complete answer.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments about anything? I see Taisha and then Matt. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for public comment, as always. Somebody lifted, oh, I'm going to get this one off, and then I'll go on to the serious one. They're both serious. One's quick. One of the commenters mentioned drive-by shootings. As somebody who comes from big cities, New York, DC, LA, I don't take that comment lightly. I also now have the privilege of getting emails around, or text messages around any kind of incidences that happen in our community. And I haven't received anything around a drive-by shooting in the amount of time that I've been here. So that's just something I wanted to just get some, I know you mentioned that, well, we had the public, but I just wanted to get some specific clarification around that, because it's concerning. And she mentioned that it's a pattern, which means that it didn't happen once, it happened more than once. So again, I can honor from the last presentation that there is an increase in personal crime, and I think all of us commented or collectively on the need to address that. What I didn't hear were drive-by shootings, and so I just wanted to get some clarification on that. Did I miss a text message?
I don't believe you have. I will say that I always honor and want to be candid with you all, that if I don't have the information at my fingertips, I don't make representations I don't know. I'm happy to double check, but I believe if I do not know that, you would, if I know that, you would have known that. And so that is not something that I take lightly either, and would have expected to receive notifications about that.
Thank you. And again, I just asked that because the increase in personal safety was on the radar screen, but the driveway was not. So I just wanted to get some clarity on that, and I look forward to the response. Next, somebody brought up Juneteenth in the continued request for a ceasefire. And so I thought it was an appropriate opportunity for me to come back on microphone and remind folks that I am already on record on the willingness to both discuss international affairs on this council and to consider a ceasefire. I don't have the majority to do that. What I have been doing in lieu of that ability is to work on the issues that we can directly impact here, which are issues around accountability, transparency, and self-determination. And so again and again and again, that we, just know that we may not as a collective be able to have done the things that have been requested by some in our community, but the principles and the values are things that at the very least, I can say for myself that I am trying very hard to instill in our in the processes, protocols, and the ways that we do business. So I just want to lift that up. There were some folks that had came before and had just expressed frustration around the fact that we haven't responded to comments. And so I just wanted to take that moment to acknowledge their existence, which I do think is appropriate when people come and speak to us. As we acknowledge that young man to come and speak to us, so too should we acknowledge those who come and speak to us. So I just wanted to lift that up. And again, someone who ran on climate and cultural resilience, it is not missed on me the climate indications and implications of what is happening there directly to here. So what happens there and what happens around the world also happens here. And as I look to Juneteenth and the freedoms, right? Freedom is not free. And I'm also, again, every day reminded that I live on stolen land. Every single day. And I have obligations and responsibilities around that. And so again, things that happen there or around the world also happen here, and just very mindful about that. So I just wanted to, again, respond to those. We hear you. It has not moved enough to have this come back on the docket, but it doesn't mean that we don't hear you. And that it doesn't mean that we're not doing things to make our city safer, more equitable, reducing discrimination, and doing what we can to co-create a world we've never even seen before. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Taisha. Anyone else? Any comments or questions? Okay. Ms. Elisha, will you please take us on to our next item?
Yes, ma'am, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our next item on tonight's agenda is our consent agenda item, which is item 3, and it consists of items 3A through 3L.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the consent agenda? I see Lauren. Okay, go for it.
Thank you. I'd like to make a comment on item F. Thank you, council colleagues, for taking the time to discuss the council rules and procedure changes at our last study session and incorporating some of my suggestions. Although these modifications to council procedures are modest, I cannot support the restrictions on signage and how it can be held and where people can stand. Our council claims to listen to the community, yet we are moving forward without any public engagement or hearing. These rule changes directly affect how the public interacts with us, but we haven't sought their input. We say we want to simplify rules and cut red tape, but instead we weave a web of complexity. These new rules don't align with widespread norms, which make participation harder, especially for newcomers. We profess to value diverse voices, yet we erect barriers that stifle expression. The timing of these changes feels reactionary, as recent issues have awakened the voices of people of color and youth in our meetings in unprecedented numbers. Do we really want to prioritize decorum over engaging these newly active voices? We aim for smooth meetings, but these rules will cause more unnecessary delays. Equitable enforcement means addressing every minor infraction, which sets ourselves up for failure if the goal was efficiency. Ultimately, I am frustrated that instead of addressing these issues activists are asking us to engage on, we find ways to avoid the conversation. Disruptions are one of the most powerful ways community members can bring attention to a topic their government isn't addressing. Like the Stonewall Uprising, our history is filled with examples where protests have led to significant rights and freedoms. Curtailing free speech to avoid council's discomfort reveals the fragility of these rights. Rights that can be adjusted to suit the moment are not rights at all. They are privileges subject to erosion. We must protect these rights even when they are inconvenient, because there will always be a next time where even the minimal free speech we are leaving on the table will be inconvenient to those in power. I fear this precedent will be used to support even more egregious restrictions until there is nothing meaningful left. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Anyone else? Anything going once? I just wanted to say, actually, also on item F, I just really appreciate the quick turnaround on creating gender-neutral language there, and also really appreciate the removal of identifying information and requiring that to be there. I think that is I think it can enable people to speak a little bit more freely, not feeling like they may be at risk of negative consequences. So appreciate that. And I think it just really falls on us to make sure that we're upholding and new rules, existing rules, all of our rules equally. And I hope that we can all help with that as we move forward. And then I just wanted to say there is so much work on this consent agenda, things that have gone into the, thank you to staff for the Gregory Canyon work, for the North Foothills Habitat Conservation Area, the Boulder Revised Code changes to keep up with all these ordinances we've been passing, the work to verify signatures and get that through, and then our development review changes. This was, I can't remember seeing a consent agenda quite this packed, and I just wanted to thank staff for all of the hard work that's gone into this. So thank you, everyone. Anyone else? Okay, Tara, yes.
I wanted to thank staff for F because I feel like it was a very good compromise. I really understand why the waiving was not possible. I believe strongly in freedom of speech. But I think that the size sign that we decided on does not stop us from having freedom of speech. People still are able to scream at us, yell at us, do what they want to do, and hold up signs, and flags, as long as they're not distracting. So I want to thank you, especially Erin, for really putting a lot of time into this and finding a happy way, for me anyway.
All right, Ms. Elisha, will you please take us through the roll? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I teed that up for myself. So. I'd like to make a motion to pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Okay, now we're ready for our vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for that, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll start the vote on the consent agenda items 3A through 3L with Councilmember Shuhart.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallach.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Adams.
No.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Folkerts.
Yes, except for no on item F.
Thank you, ma'am. And Marquis.
Yes.
The consent agenda items A through L are hereby approved.
Learning to sing.
So
I just learned that I can just say yes and then no to the one thing. So can I get a redo or no? Has your ship sailed?
We can correct the record. Yes,
Awesome.
ma'am.
I would like to correct the record. So that's a yes, but a no on that other one.
A yes
On F.
on all items except item 3F.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so the record has been duly corrected. So the consent agenda, again, items 3A through 3L are hereby approved except for the noted nays from Folkerts and Adams on item 3F.
Thank you so much. Let's move on. Would you please take us through our first call-up item?
Yes, ma'am. Our call-ups are item number 4 on tonight's agenda. Item 4A is the concept plan review and comment for a redevelopment proposal of 2555 30th Street. The proposal includes demolition of the existing car dealership and redevelopment of the site with residential uses. The new development proposes approximately 150 units, including studio 1 and 2 and 3-bedroom units, ranging from studio units to 3-bedroom units for a total of 118,927 square feet. Parking will be located on site and below grade, reviewed under case number LUR 2024-00018.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have a quick question for clarification on this item? All good. Please raise your hand if you would like to call this item up for discussion. All right.
I just think that when you have a project of that size, taking a look at it is a useful thing to do.
All right. I think I saw one hand. Did I miss any?
When you say that size, Mark, I'm just curious what the trigger threshold for you is, as I'm learning.
Well, I would certainly say if you get over 100,000 square feet and you get to 150 units, that's a size of project that interests me as a member of council.
All right. It looks like we will not be calling this one up. Would you please move us on to our next item? Yes. Sorry.
Can I make a comment on this item?
Yes, please do.
I would just say that I would strongly support planning board's comments. Particularly, there was one of breaking down kind of the mass and scale against in the pedestrian realm, particularly related to the very flat facades. And I would like to see the applicant address that if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciated Planning Board's comments on this too, so thank you to Planning Board if you're listening. Yes, yeah, Tina.
So when you express that hope that this is incorporated into the construction part or the realization of the project, and this is a process question as a newer council person, does that go into the record as direction, or is it just it's just that hope that the person who builds the project takes it into consideration.
And it looks like Brad has stepped up to answer that question for you.
Great, thanks.
Very hot mic. Brad Mueller, Planning and Development Services. But I certainly, if Councilmember Folkerts wants to respond first, I certainly want to defer.
I would say that because this is at the concept plan review stage, they will have to resubmit for site plan review, which will be another opportunity for us to assess if they have done what planning board and our body has asked them. We could also call it up at that point. So that there is more than just hope. We can enforce it if we so desire. Yeah. And so that's particularly why I tend to make comments related to concept plan reviews.
Yeah, and I would just elaborate, following up on that point, the difference between a concept plan and then the full application that comes in later. But we do dutifully note those comments and appreciate those kind of clarifications as we go along our way. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. I think we're ready for the next item now.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Next, we have item 4B, which is the landmark alteration certificate application to construct a new 2-story building, construct a rear addition to the primary building, and modify an existing accessory building at 1105 Spruce Street, a contributing property in the Mapleton Hill Historic District pursuant to Section 9-11-18 of the Boulder Revised Code 1981.
Thank you. Does anybody have a quick question for clarification on this one? Would anyone like to call this up? All right, I don't see anybody there. We can move on to the next item.
Thank you. Next, we have item 4C. It is also a landmark alteration certificate application, but is to demolish an existing C-1990s accessory building, construct a new 1.5-story 2-car garage, and remodel the existing house at 432 Concord Avenue, a non-contributing property in the Mapleton Hill Historic District pursuant to Section 9-11-18 of the Boulder Revised Code 1981.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? Would anyone like to call it up? Okay, that's a no on that one too then. Thank you. I think we can move into our public hearings now.
Yes, ma'am. Our public hearings are item number 5 on tonight's agenda. 5A. 5A is the second reading and consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance 8634, designating the property at 904 Mapleton Avenue, City of Boulder, Colorado, to be known as the Gardner Sandeau House as an individual landmark under Chapter 9-11 Historic Preservation, BRC 1981, and setting forth related details. This is reviewed under case number HIS 2023-00262.
Thank you so much, and we'll go straight to staff on this one. Marcy?
Good evening, Council. Marcy Gerwing, Principal Historic Preservation Planner in Planning and Development Services. I'll begin by going through the procedure for the quasi-judicial hearing. First, Council members will note any ex parte contacts. Staff will then give a presentation, and Council may ask questions. The applicant will then give a presentation and followed by Council questions, and then the public hearing is then open for any community member comments. After the last public comment, the applicant has the opportunity to respond to anything that was said. The public hearing is then closed and Council can discuss a decision. A motion requires an affirmative vote of at least 5 members to pass, and motions must state findings, conclusions, and a recommendation. Finally, a record of the hearing is kept by staff. I'll turn it back over for ex parte contacts.
Thank you. Does anybody have any ex parte contacts to note? I don't see any.
All right, thank you. As part of the quasi-judicial process, the criteria for your decision this evening is found in 911.6 of the Boulder Revised Code, and that is focused on whether the designation meets the purposes and standards in subsection 911.1 and 911.2 of the Boulder Revised Code, in balance with the goals and policies of the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan. Looking at those two code sections, the first defines the purpose of the Historic Preservation Code, which is to preserve, protect, and enhance historically significant buildings and areas of the city reminiscent of past eras, events, or people, and to develop and maintain appropriate settings to enhance property values, stabilize neighborhoods, promote tourist trade and interest, and foster knowledge of the city's living history. The second part provides the types of designations council may pass, including individual landmarks on a single site containing special character and special historic, architectural, or aesthetic interest or value. And then the third part is whether the designation is in balance with the goals and policies of the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan, which sets a vision for future development and preservation in the city of Boulder and Boulder County. The options in front of you this evening are to approve, modify and approve, or deny the designation by ordinance. If designated, this property will become Boulder's 216th individual landmark. This one is a bit unique in that the property is already located in a historic district, which means the owners are already eligible for state tax credits, and exterior changes are already reviewed through our program. The main difference is that the property will receive individual recognition, and the city will provide a bronze plaque for the building. This nomination comes to you from the property owners who applied for landmark designation at the end of last year, and on May 1st, the Landmarks Board unanimously voted to recommend designation of the property. The ordinance was included on your June 6th consent agenda, and that brings us to this evening's public hearing. The property is located at the southeast corner of 9th and Mapleton in the Mapleton Hill Historic District. The house is a beautiful Edwardian vernacular stone and frame building with very intricate detailing really on all four sides of the building. The house was constructed for Frank and Isabel Gardner starting in 1895 and took 2 years to finish. Frank Gardner was a retailer in Boulder who operated a grocery, bakery, and later a secondhand furniture store. The family of the current owners moved into the house in 1943. Their grandparents purchased the house for their daughter and son-in-law. Their son-in-law, James Sando, was instrumental in establishing the annual Colorado Shakespeare Festival here in Boulder by directing the first Shakespearean performance at the University of Colorado's Mary Rippon Theater. And the Sando family have been careful stewards for the property for nearly 80 years. The property also meets the architectural significance for its Edwardian vernacular style, and the house was constructed by Scottish stonemasons Donald Grant and Andrew Fraser. They also constructed Armory Hall up on the hill and the first Congregational Church on Pine Street. And going through, the house also meets the criteria for its artistic merit for the skilled masonry using Dakota sandstone and the carpentry work. It's an example of the uncommon with the upper decks and balconies. And then local stone quarried from the Shingle Quarry is used in its construction. And then the property meets the criteria for environmental significance as the house is visually prominent right on the corner of 9th and Mapleton and is compatible with its residential site and context. It's a visual landmark, and the area has a high degree of integrity as it is already located in a historic district. The next part of your criteria is looking at the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan policies, and there are a few that are relevant to this application, which include 2.27, which talks about protecting sites with cultural or architectural value, encouraging new designations, and working to support historic amenities so they continue to contribute to the economic vitality of the community and foster meaningful connections to Boulder. The proposed landmark name is the Gardner Sando House, recognizing the first and the longest owners, and the proposed boundary follows the property lines. A portion of the farmer's ditch easement is located at the southern edge of the property, and the ordinance includes language that clarifies that the ditch company is exempt from review for improvements to the ditch. And with that, staff and the Landmarks Board recommend the City Council adopt the ordinance and designate the property at 904 Mapleton as an individual landmark. Thank you. Welcome to the owner, Anne, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Matt?
I have a question. The fact that it was built in the late 1800s, I'm just curious what took so long for a building of that age in our community to finally be designated? Because it seems like there aren't that many left that are of that old. So I'm just sort of curious if we know why it's taken so long.
Well, so it has been designated for over 40 years as part of the Mapleton Hill Historic District, Mapleton Hill being the largest residential historic district in 1982. But I think the question for the timing might be best answered by the owners who have owned it since the 1940s, which is really remarkable. I think I read a stat that property ownership in Boulder used to be turned over every 7 years, and it's much shorter than that. So to meet a family who has had a property for almost 80 years is pretty remarkable.
Any other questions at this stage? All right, I think we can move on to our public hearing. I think there was one person signed up. Is that correct?
I
Sorry,
still do
I
not.
would like to open the public comment.
Sorry, I still do not see Lynn online. Lynn, if you are here, please let me know by using the raise hand function or reaching out to me in the Q&A box. But it does not look like she has joined us.
Okay, then I will close the public comment and we will move on. Sorry, I thought somebody was about to make a motion. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sorry, the owner is here to make a presentation as part of the
Oh, wonderful.
process.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, then I would invite you up, please, and present to us. Thank you.
Don't really feel the need to say anything except that for our family, having been there for so long, when we hit 40 or 80 years, we said, maybe it's time to recognize that because it just doesn't happen so much anymore. So, and you asked why it had taken it so long to be designated. I think nobody asked.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing it forward.
A motion?
Yep.
I'm going to move that we adopt Ordinance 8634, designating the property at 904 Mapleton Avenue, City of Boulder, Colorado, to be known as the Gardner Sandow House as an individual landmark under Chapter 9-11, Historic Preservation, BRC 1981, as well as adopt the staff memorandum dated May 2, 2024, as the findings and conclusions of council and setting forth related details.
Second.
All right, thank you. And I believe this one's a roll call vote.
That is correct, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any comments before? Okay, we're ready then. Thank you.
All right, we'll start the roll call vote for Ordinance 8634 with Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallen.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Folkerts.
Thank you, and yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
And Shuhard.
Yes.
Ordinance 8634 is hereby adopted unanimously.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for bringing this property forward. Okay, let's move on to our next item then.
Our next item is the extended recruitment board and commissions appointments.
Thank you so much. Council, as you'll recall, in March, we met to fill some vacancies in our 2024 recruitment process for boards and commissions. We had 6 boards and commissions that were left outstanding and had some vacancies, and today we're hoping to fill those. And so with that, I pass it over to our lovely city clerk, Miss Alicia Johnson.
Thank you, Nuria, for that gracious introduction. And good evening, Council. Alicia Johnson, serving you and the city as your city clerk and records manager. As noted by our city manager at your March 14th meeting for the 2024 annual recruitment appointments, you did direct staff to extend the 2024 boards and commissions recruitment period for 5 additional weeks for the following boards or commissions. We had the Beverage Licensing Authority, the Boulder Junction Access District for the Parking Commission, Boulder Junction Access District for the Travel Demand Management Commission, the Cannabis Licensing and Advisory Board, the Design Advisory Board, and the Downtown Management Commission. Now, for this extended recruitment, please note that no applications were received for either BJAD commissions. Now, before we begin the process of the nominating and appointing boards and commission candidates to fill our vacancies, I'm going to provide an outline of our processes for this item. There will be 2 steps. First, I will present a slide, as you see on your screens, of the number of seats that were vacant, the number of applicants received, and along with the number of eligible candidates. Then second, I will ask the Mayor Pro Tem to open our public hearing, close it when complete, and turn the discussion back to me to provide council with guidance on how this nomination and appointment process will proceed. At this point, I will now turn it over to the Mayor Pro Tem to open and close the public hearing.
Thank you so much. I will open the public hearing, and we have 1 speaker. Has she come online?
Lynn has not yet come online.
Okay. Thank you, Megs. Then with no more speakers, I will close the public hearing. Ms. Alicia, would you please move us through the nomination process?
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I will now review the formal candidate nomination process. Please be reminded that this procedure is also outlined in our Boulder Revised Code and in your agenda packet materials. We will proceed through nominations 1 board at a time in alphabetical order by board title. Council members will make nominations to fill vacancies 1 seat at a time. Once nominations for the seats have been made by council members, council is welcome to discuss with each other before taking final action. If only 1 person is nominated for a seat, that appointment will stand if there are no objections. If more than 1 person is nominated for the same seat, we have a specific process for narrowing the candidates down to 1 finalist. A vote of support will be held for each individual nominated. Now, candidates must receive a minimum of 5 votes to be declared the finalists for a vacant seat. If the first round of voting does not produce a clear winner, the candidate with the fewest votes will drop from the nominee list and the vote will be conducted again. This continues until a single nominee remains. The order of nominees will be called either alphabetically or reverse alphabetically by the last name of the nominees, depending upon a flip of my coin. From that point on, I will alternate the order for all future nominees' votes during the meeting where more than 1 candidate has been nominated. If a person is not selected for the first seat they are nominated for, they can be nominated for 1 of the other available seats on that board or commission, or for another board or commission seat that they apply to. This process is followed for each board or commission, and once council has determined a single appointed candidate for each seat, I will need a motion to approve the appointments as elected, and this item will conclude for the evening. And just for council's awareness, I am accompanied by John Morris, our elections administrator, and he will be keeping track of the nominations and the appointments. Mayor Pro Tem, I turn the meeting back to you, and John and I are here to support this process as it continues.
Thank you so much. Do we have slides for each of the boards?
Yes, we do.
All right, let's move to our first one then for Beverage Licensing Authority. Do we have any nominations for Beverage Licensing Authority for one of the seats? Tara.
I nominate Brendan Haggerty. I think he'll do a great job.
Thank you. And which seat?
Pardon me?
Which seat? We've got
the 5.
5. Okay, great. Thank you. Would you like to speak to your nomination? Okay. Does anyone object to this nomination? Okay, I think that one is done. Let's move to the next board. All right, do we have a nomination for this board? Cannabis Licensing Advisory Board. Yes, Lauren.
I would like to nominate Del Kreiser to seat 6, the 3-year term. They seemed like a great applicant.
Seat 7, I think?
Oh, sorry, that's different from what is in our packet.
Yes, thank you.
John, is it seat 6 or seat 7? And what would be the term?
In the packet, it says both seat and 6 are open. But I know that Cannabis Licensing Board has different requirements for different seats. So I am guessing that they are only able to fill seat 7.
That's correct.
Okay, then I revise and I would like to nominate them for seat 7.
Administrator here. Do we get that? Okay. So one distinction for seat 6 and 7. Seat 6 requires the applicant to be a marijuana or hemp business owner or representative, and Dell's not eligible for that, but he is for seat 7.
Great.
Thank you for clarifying. Lauren, do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay. Does anybody object to this nomination? Okay, we can move on to the next one then. All right, we've got Design Advisory Board, and does anybody have any nominations for this one? Lauren.
As a previous member of the Design Advisory Board, I was really excited to see so many great applicants. We've had a limited number of applicants in the past, and there were just so many good people to choose from. So I hope even if you aren't selected tonight, please reapply. Boards and commissions appointments will be open again soon enough, and if I could appoint more of you, I would. I would like to nominate Harriet Ingham. She is an engineer in mass timber, and I really appreciated both that specialty and her focus on sustainability and work with kids in the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. Does anybody else have anyone else they would like to nominate? Let me first ask, does anybody have any objections to Harriet Ingham? All right, Ryan, would you like to comment?
I support Harriet, but I also just wanted to acknowledge what a great cohort of applicants, and Chester Harvey, who applied for planning board, just has impeccable credentials, and I hope we get Chester. I hope we get you on something soon. Thanks.
And Tara.
Yes, I support Harriet, but I also want to say that we got so many great candidates. It was very difficult to decide, and not only would I ask that you apply again for Design Advisory Board, but many of you actually should apply for other boards as well, because you have so many talents, and I'm hoping that that happens, as Lauren said, it's sooner than you think. So I agree. Chester, don't give up on us.
All right, thank you then. I think we will move forward then with Harriet Ingham, since there were no objections. And I think there's one more, if I haven't lost count. All right, then we've got Downtown Management Commission. Would anyone like to make a nomination here? Tara?
I would like to nominate Erica Dahl for the number 4 seat for the 5-year term.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any other nominations for seat number 4? Does anyone have any objections to Erica Dahl filling that seat? All right, we've got that seat filled. Does anybody have a nomination for seat number 3? Lauren.
I'd like to nominate Andy Nathan for seat number 3 to the 4-year term.
Does anybody have any objections? All right, thank you so much. Yes, please, Tara.
I just want to thank them. I want to thank you both. I don't know if you're listening tonight. We often have trouble finding people for the Downtown Management Commission, and I am very excited. You both have so much experience, and I'm really looking forward to a great commission.
Thank you. And just thank you to everybody who applied for these boards. I would invite a motion to approve the 2024 boards and commissions extended recruitment appointments, unless we need a recap first. Are we good?
That is at the will of council.
All right.
If you'd like a recap, we can give it. Since it was a small number, I think John's actually documented it well, so a motion would be welcome.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
I make a motion to approve the candidates for boards and commissions as mentioned in this meeting.
Second.
Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I just it's good to finally see some crops of candidates really that come in, especially for DAB, and you know, we'll get the BJAD one of these days. We'll crack that nut, I suppose. But anyway, it's good to fill this up, and they'll be here soon enough for the next crop.
Thank you, Lauren. Yes.
And I'm guessing that some of our increase in applications and wonderful candidates has to do with staff and the outreach and engagement. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. And Lauren, I just want to thank you and Tara too for all your work on the boards and commissions committee as well. All right, I think we're ready for our vote.
All right, thank you everyone for that appreciation. We are here to support and glad for the results. So we'll start the vote for the extended recruitment boards and commissions appointments with Councilmember Wallach.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Folkerts.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Shuhard.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Thank you all. And the 2024 extended recruitment boards and commission appointments are hereby approved as noted unanimously.
Thank you so much. We are ready for our next item.
All right. And again, thank you all for your support. We have next our items number 6 on the agenda. 6A is the follow-up discussion with council on ballot measures, and this is noted under our matters from the city manager.
Thanks so much. And as you'll recall, we had a study session on May 9th to discuss this. And to present this item, we will head to our Deputy City Attorney, Erin Bowe.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. We have 3 potential ballot items for council discussion and direction tonight. The presentation is structured to have a break for discussion and questions at the end of each of the 3 sections. All right, and next slide, please. This is our ballot item schedule this year. Tonight's items are brought forward on recommendations from the Charter Review Subcommittee, the Board and Commission Subcommittee, and from council direction at the study session on May 9th. From council direction tonight, staff will draft ballot language and ordinances. Ordinances will be introduced on first reading August 1st, second reading and public hearing on August 15th, and if needed, a third reading or continued second reading on September 5th. Next slide, please. All right, so to get to our discussion items, the first one is council pay, which has been brought forward by the Charter Review Subcommittee. This proposal would amend Charter Section 7 to increase council pay and move to an annual AMI calculation to reflect the increased quantity and complexity of council work. The second item are executive sessions brought forward by the Charter Review Subcommittee. This proposal would amend Charter Section 9 and add a new Charter Section 22A for executive sessions as allowed by state law for reasons such as receiving legal advice and discussing negotiation strategy. And the third item is changes to Charter Section 130 concerning advisory boards and commissions brought forward by the Board and Commission Subcommittee. This proposal would amend Charter Section 130 to allow council to vary the terms, eligibility, and meeting schedule for boards that do not have enabling charter sections. And next slide, please. All right, so our first item is council pay. The Charter Committee has proposed increasing council compensation to reflect the increased amount and complexity of council work using an AMI-based approach. The current stipend is $244 per meeting for 52 meetings, which approximately is $12,695, and it is increased annually based on the Consumer Price Index. Fort Collins voters approved an AMI system in 2022. Under that system, the mayor receives 75% of the AMI, the mayor pro tem 60%, and other council members 50%. For the Boulder County Metropolitan Statistical Area, in 2024, this equates to $76,650 for the mayor, $61,320 for the mayor pro tem, and $51,100 for other council members. And I will pause here, and on this slide are questions presented from Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Thank you so much. So what I was hoping with these discussions is that we would just kind of move forward with them independently one at a time. And then once we get through all of these, have a little bit of time just to talk through the sort of comprehensive package of all these ballot measures. So I think we'll just start with this one. Do folks have any clarifying questions? And then we're going to move into a series of yes, no's, and then get to kind of the heart of the discussion around amounts. Any questions? I've got a couple, but I'm going to give others a chance first. But if no one else is, then I have one question, and it's really around sort of thinking about what this may mean, particularly for lower income folks, that there's a risk of people kind of getting kicked over the benefits cliff. And I'm just wondering if we've had any discussions with people for whom this might apply, to really just think about what is the increase that would sort of offset any issues with people getting more than their benefits would allow them to get.
I am not aware of any engagement that's been done on this issue.
Okay, thank you. Any other clarifying questions? Okay, we'll start with the, oh, yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Procedural question?
Mm-hmm.
I have a comment to make, but I can do it.
Yeah.
I have a comment to make, but I can do it later, I can do it now, whatever your preference.
I would say maybe let's wait and get through some of the initial questions first.
Okay.
And then what I'm expecting is that we'll have a little bit, the discussion point will be when we're talking about percentages or amounts. Okay, so first question then, just a show of hands, if you still want to move forward with a ballot measure related to council pay this year.
Say that again?
Just if you still want to move forward with a ballot measure related to council pay this year. Okay. Show of hands for folks who think that tying it to a % of the area median income for a one-person household is the right approach. Do we have, okay, looks like we got a majority there. Okay, then we will move on to the next one. Should there be a difference between council members, mayor pro tem, and the mayor? And again, just kind of here, looking for just a quick read on this. So, and it doesn't have to be that there's a difference between all three. If you think anywhere in there should be a difference, then this would be the point to raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Then I think that helps just narrow the scope a little bit of what we're talking about. So this I expect we'll need a little bit of time to discuss here. What we're looking at is what are the percentages of AMI to consider putting on the ballot, and also thinking about if there's any additional information that we may need to make this decision in August. So we're trying to give staff some direction on what the percentages are that we'll be looking to include in the ballot. So I will open it up for comments. Yes, Matt.
And this is just comments per this question here about any differences on the AMI. Yeah, the one that really sticks out for me is I don't think we need to do the difference between mayor pro tem. I think we just have the standard council at 50% and the mayor at 75%. I think that's a little cleaner, it's a little more straightforward, and I think that's kind of also indicative of, you know, we've elected our mayor and they are representing us in such a fuller capacity that level of compensation makes sense where it is. So I would just eliminate the mayor pro tem and then keep things where they are for everybody else.
Mark and Tina, then Tara, then Lauren. Oh, and Taisha, sorry, I keep looking to my left because I got a kink in my neck.
All right, okay, yeah. I'm going to be an outlier on this issue. There are two ways to improve the quality of the experience for those who serve on the Boulder City Council. One is to entice service through money. The other is to improve the conditions under which we work. We took the first step in dealing with the conditions and actually providing ourselves a true summer recess, but we can do more, and I hope we will. I suggest that the key factors inhibiting more people from running are the voluminous weekly packets, the number of meetings, and our inability to enforce discipline on ourselves to control the length of meetings. In 5 years on council, I do not believe there have been more than a couple of occasions, if that, where we shut down a lengthy meeting and came back later to finish up. So we continue to debate and legislate at 10:30, 10:45, and 11 o'clock at night, accompanied by drooping heads and virtually incoherent speeches. Service on this council has always been an act of public service. We're now on the path to abandoning this ideal to create a cadre of quasi-professional politicians. And in a fiscally constrained environment where we cannot perform core services adequately, and as an example, I refer you to this week's information memo on our snow and ice response program, where we lack the funds to properly ramp up those services, we want to go to the community and ask for just short of $500,000 to put in the pockets of council members, raising compensation by approximately 400%. Might I suggest that the optics on this are rather poor? I would be much more interested in a committee of staff and appointed council members tasked with proposing changes that will return service on this council to its original intent, a part-time act of service to the community that is open to everyone and can be performed by anyone. Accordingly, I will not be supporting this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And then we've got Tina.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and for bringing up a bunch of points, which I agree with. I am going to be supporting an increase of council pay, but not the amount that's being proposed at 50% of AMI. I was really swayed by the editorial written by Gary Garrison in October in the fall during the campaign that tried to strike a balance between the nature of public service and the fact that we do spend a lot of time and it should be recognized and valued at a quantity greater than the $12,600 that we're currently being paid. His suggestion was to use the livable wage, which he pulled from the MIT Living Wage Calculator. Ours is currently at $26 an hour. And I also, I want to also recognize that I don't believe that this is a 20-hour-a-week job. I also believe that we all have different experiences, and I want to respect and honor that. And I think it's important that we're all going to be approaching this differently. However, at $51,000, I feel that the expectation is then that I'm working this as a part-time job, 20 hours a week, that I should almost be clocking in for that. And that's not really what I signed up for. Now, that is my impression. That's my experience. And it doesn't, and so that's kind of where I am. So I'm looking for something that lands us more. I would also consider 25% of the AMI, which I think would get us more in the 30,000 range. And then concurring with Councilmember Benjamin, I also would like to recognize the mayor separately and then all the other the other 8 of us are more or less the same, although recognizing all the good work Nicole is doing, Council Member Mayor Pro Tem Nicole. So that's not really, just want to make sure you don't take that personally. So it's important to say that. So that's where I am. So whether it's, I mean, 10 hours is a little light, but I think there are different ways of getting there. Also, the leap from 12,600 to 51,000 seems pretty big for me. So we could always pass a second initiative later. And finally, I just want to point out that we already do get health benefits, which I think is great, and I appreciate that benefit that's been extended to us, and that includes a good health program and a dental program as well, and a free recreation pass and free parking when we're here. It's amazing. So, so that's where I am.
May I ask just one clarifying question there? So if we had something like 25% for council member, mayor pro tem, what would you propose as the difference there for mayor?
That's a great question. I'd love to discuss it, but maybe 35%?
Thank you. Tara.
First, I want to say that I definitely support increasing our pay. Because $12,000 is not enough for what we do. However, another perspective about why, first of all, I don't think my field is sales and marketing, and I don't know that we could sell a 4 times increase and get it. And for me, the most important thing is that we see a raise. And if whenever you're trying to decide how much to sell something for, let's say in my job, I have to say, what do I think I can get? But also I want the most I can get, but I want to get the sale. So when I say that I don't think we're going to get the sale at 48,000, I just really don't. So I'm thinking we should come in at 25% of AMI or living wage, which is a good suggestion. Thank you, Gary and Tina. But I will say that even at 4 times the pay, I'm not going to give up a business that I've worked 40 years to. Like my business took 4 decades to grow. And if I take the chance and just get my $48,000 and then put all that time into it and, go to all the meetings, answer every single email, my business is going to fall apart. I know it will because I'm barely holding on now. Never mind, making more and more time. And I don't think a lot of people personally are going to want to, who have small businesses or let's say, hard jobs, want to take a chance and take 4 years off and lose their business. Do you know what I mean? So right now I can kind of handle it, but I think 4 times and having to speak to constituents who will ask for a lot more of our time, I don't think that I would be able to say, yes, I want to be on council and then just take 4 years off, which is hard to do. So I think we should continue to reduce the workload. And with a constrained budget, I agree that it's going to be really hard to sell that. So that's my thinking right now. And I realize that there's a lot of people who can't afford, of course, to do this as a part-time job. So that's why I'm suggesting doubling it or tripling it, but certainly not 48,000. So I'm going to go with 25-ish% AMI.
Thank you. Lauren, then Taisha, and then Ryan.
Thanks. I think this is a really important issue because in a capitalist society, pay significantly impacts who can participate in being on council. Currently, we are all property owners. Oh, we are mostly property owners. Thank you for that correction. Yeah. And we mostly work jobs that make above average pay in our community, or we are unemployed, or we are not employed. I don't want to make council a full-time job, but I also want to make it so that a barista who is a renter in our community can imagine running for and being on council without losing their ability to make ends meet financially. I think the difference between the pay for the mayor and council should be smaller. I agree with kind of the 10% that Tina mentioned to encourage the mayor not to concentrate power and to spread duties equitably to council members so that we have a more diverse representation for our community. I also just wanted to note that while we do receive health benefits from the city, we have to opt into them, and they do come out of our pay. So they're not free. And if you opt into all of the benefits, I believe you can end up owing the city money. So, in terms of how much I think the appropriate percentage of pay is, 50% I think is high. 25% feels low to me. So somewhere in the middle feels like a good option. I think I would probably support 40% AMI for council members and 50% for the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. And Taisha.
Okay. So, where did I write this down at? Let's see. I agree with, obviously, council pay. Oh, wait, where did I write it down? Oh, darn, I hate when I write something down and I can't find the note. Oh, there it is. So, some of you who are received my newsletter got this last edition had how many hours. So I track my hours hourly by category. So I'm happy to share that information with anybody who'd be interested in having it. What some trends that I think support council pay is, unfortunately, the majority of the time is actually spent during the day at meetings. Council meeting evenings are not, between orientations, the different assigned, for example, I had a 2-hour meeting from 3 to 5 today. And so, again, I just want to acknowledge that this is a real part-time job. I actually do track my time, and it is more than 20 hours every week. And in addition to that, and more importantly, as a person who has their own consulting business, it took a hit last year during campaign season. It's taking a hit now. That's the reality of the situation. I am sacrificing to be here. Again, if anybody looks at my taxes, it was like, yay, yay, no. And that's just the reality of the situation. To your point of, we will never get a barista here if we keep at it as we are. I also, again, want to lift up that I am the 3rd African American to serve on this council ever. I also want to lift up that if we did a socioeconomic analysis of those who have served, I almost would guarantee, I would bet my life that the majority are well above this, wherever the AMI, wherever the high rates of AMI are, or, that's where they are. So again, I just want to lift up that the fact that the majority of our leadership on council previously, and again, we can get even just the information, the zip code of where they live, to get an idea of how much they make or how much they have. I would argue many are not on the eastern part of our city. And so, again, I advocate strongly for council pay because this is a job, and it does matter. I look to our county commissioners and seeing how pay allows for a broader representation. I don't think this is a full-time job. And as far as I am flexible to the 50%, I do hear you, Tara, on what are people's appetite. It's not necessarily what is fair that wins, I would say the majority of the time, but what people are willing to agree upon. And so, although I do think we are worthy of 50% based on the evidence that I have, not beliefs, but evidence. However, I do also agree that the appetite and where we are fiscally, or rather, the efforts to have more transparency in our fiscal health across the aggregate of our organization, I'd be hesitant to put together the 5, but I would be willing to 40% or somewhere in there. I do think 25 is too low. And so much so, again, as for the effective date, I don't want to jump the thing here, but I'm willing to take it for the team until 2026 because I don't want any optics of a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Taisha. And Ryan.
I joined Councilmember Wallach in being an outlier. Sorry, I lost my screen here. So this is not for us. The whatever the pay increase we have, this is for the next council. This is about what kind of an election in 2026 do we want to attract candidates for? And the more attractive we make this, the more diverse and the more competitive the next race is going to be. So this is not about our quality of service, our quality of life, ours or the next council's quality of life, so much as it is about representation. It is about who we want to run for these offices and represent Boulder. We don't have any minimum wage workers, I don't think, on council. We have folks who have made this work through a number of means that is not available to a lot of our residents. And a few colleagues have talked about how our city is having, we have fiscal constraints, we're going through challenges, we're wrestling with difficult problems. But I would offer that many of these problems are a product of root cause issues, that if we have a more diverse body of elected officials, we'll probably be in a better position to understand, to interpret, and to problem solve for. So this is about, do you want to invest? Do the residents of Boulder invest in a more diverse and competitive body of electeds to try to solve difficult problems, to make things happen in the near term and also the much longer term? Period. Next, this matter of how much time we spend, others have said this, but it's very unique. This is a true choose your own adventure in terms of how much time it takes. I think whether the packet is 100 pages or it's 800 pages, that is a very small fraction of the week. I won't speak for others, but for me, that is not what in any way defines the experience and the time that goes into this job. And for some people, it works because they're a part-time business owner in some way. But that's not everybody, and either way, it's not about this makeup. It is about what opportunities we want to create for the next cohort. So I think the workload is a little bit of a red herring as far as what we need to provide to create the representation. So I will conclude by saying I would support. I'm on the very high end of what we should do. I would like to see us do 75% for mayor, 65% for regular council. This would bring us more closely in line with county commissioners and the idea of investing in the problem solvers that would be doing the work we need to do.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for all of your comments. I got a couple comments of my own and then just had a couple questions that I think will help us narrow down fairly quickly. I just want to echo what some folks have said about finding ways to make our work more efficient, getting our meetings done a little bit faster, having less information to process. I think there is also some efficiency that could be found in just kind of spreading out some of the work as well of going into community, engaging with community. So I think that all these things will unfold. I'm hopeful that our process change working group will help out with some of this as well. And all that is to say, just trying to get this from something that is 20 to 30 hours a week to something that's more in the 10 to 15 range feels like a good goal to me to strive toward. And I think it's something that we can do within the next couple of years. I don't think it's a decade out. I think it's a little bit closer. I think that also increases who can be on our council too, because if you have to work full time and you've got kids or you're caring for an elderly relative or something like that, and you're also trying to do 30 hours of council work a week, there's really no way to do that without interrupting your health and or your business suffering or something like that. So I think there are multiple reasons for trying to get the work to be a little bit more efficient. I just want to echo the comments about where I think a difference should come from. I do think it is appropriate that the mayor gets a little bit more than council. I do not think it is necessary for the mayor pro tem to have a different salary either. on a week like this one, where I knew that I had a meeting to facilitate, I just cut back the other things that I was doing this week to make it fit in. So you can still kind of keep up the same amount of work. I think there's also something that might be a little weird, since we tend to switch mayor pro tem every year, to have start at one salary, go up, then go back down. That just seems like a lot for the person as well as for staff to have to deal with those changes. So anyway, so I would not recommend against for that. And then I think, where I was thinking of was if we could get down the work in the next couple of years to 15 hours or so a week, where I was landing was about a third of a time, 15 hours or so. It's around a third time, so something in the 30, 33, 35% range. And I think I agree with the idea of the mayor being maybe 10%, 15% more there, again, because we are a body of 9, and I think that there's work that can be spread out in terms of public engagements and things like that, going to speak at the Capitol, those kinds of things. So anyway, so those are the end of my comments. And then just to kind of take it into what I hope will get us to some guidance for staff sooner than later. I think there's, yep.
Clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be another chance to do comments? Because I didn't provide comments because I was just answering question 5. So
Gotcha.
If there are, I'll circle back. If now's the time, then I'll drop in my.
If it is a comment that you
6 cents.
think may
Everyone
influence.
was feeding off
Yep.
the general
Yeah,
comment.
yeah.
So if there's
Yep.
another chance that I do it, otherwise, if now's the time. Let me
Okay,
know.
I would say just go for it now, and then I will try to guide us through some questions that'll narrow us down.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So for one, I really appreciate a lot of the feedback, and it's great to hear a lot of those differences. Hopefully, we're not negotiating fractions of a percent to settle on the right number. So hopefully, we'll get to a good place. This job is no less than 20 hours a week. I know that everyone has their own experiences, but it adds up so quickly. And I think at the end of the day, fair pay is simply that. It's fair for the work that's expected of us. Passing a percentage that is less than the work you're doing is still creating the need for charity, the need for you to give your time rather than to be compensated for the work that you're doing in this community. And to Mark's point about process, it's yes and. There's no reason why we can't be disciplined, gain that better process, and provide that compensation. And that really builds to what Ryan said, which this isn't really about us. I think this is a chance where this council can pay forward, no pun intended, exactly the right conditions so that future councils for generations to come have exactly what they need to have the representative council to tackle the diversity of issues that come to our community. And I think that's what's just so critical. So I think it's all of the above that need to be done. We just have to have the discipline that if we do this, and this is why I wrote that hotline the other week, which is, okay, but then where do we hold our feet to the fire? We get this on the ballot and it passes, then where do we step in and be like, now we're going to grind out what this process changes are, and we need to spend the time to do that. So I just hope that we can come back and talk about optics. We need to make that commitment, and maybe we need to make that commitment before the November ballot. So those are things that I think are really important because we owe it to the community to work on both sides of this. So anyway, I think this is a great work, and I'm happy to sort of figure out where that sweet spot is, in that 40, 50, 35 range, and we'll sort it out. But appreciate everyone's comments.
Yes.
Can I change my AMI to what you said? Are we are we?
Oh no, yeah, no, we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I think the first thing I would like to just have us choose, I heard a couple of different options for the difference between mayor and council/mayor pro tem. One was 10%, one was 25%. Did I miss anybody saying something that was different from those two numbers? Okay, so I'm going to poll each of these. So who is with 10%? Oh, sorry. So the difference, so we haven't decided on what the exact AMI percent is yet, but we're looking at the difference between mayor and the rest of council.
Can I have a point of clarification? Are you polling, hey, 10 or 25, and the winner is that's the number, or is there an opportunity to say, hey, if there's sum of each? Can we, split the difference and say 15? Like, I'm just wondering how
No,
we get to that number.
yeah, no, I was just hoping that we could just start with deciding what that difference should be, because those were the two numbers that I heard. And if we figure that out, then we can move on to what should the AMI for council be, and then the mayor sort of follows from there.
Okay, I was just thinking if we'd find a way between 10 and 25 to settle on maybe 15 works for everybody and get to some more greater unanimity. So that's why I was just thinking if there's an opportunity to find that middle point, but I'll let you.
Okay, yep, I can pull 15 as well if folks would like. So have a few different numbers. Okay. What's that? Okay. All right. So I am going to pull 10, 15, and 25. And please feel free to raise your hands for 2, and then we'll narrow it down after there if there's not a clear winner. Oh, sorry. Am I confusing? Okay. Do you want to just do 1? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So what I was thinking is we could do it a little bit like we do board and commission appointments. So we've got 10, 15, 25. I will tally each one, and then if there are if we've got 2, if no one has a clear majority, then we'll go back and I'll just pull 2. So you can raise your hand for 2 of them. All right. So let's start with 10% difference there. 5. Okay. We got a clear majority for 10%. So I am okay. I'll keep going. All right. 15%. Okay, 4 for 15%, 25%. Okay, then 10% is the winner there if I counted correctly. So we will, the difference will be 10% between the mayor and the rest of council. All right, and boy, I heard a lot of different numbers for what the amount should be. But I think that going between 25 and 50 is probably about where we were. So,
Sorry, can somebody do the math on what that actually is? I know what it is.
oh, 25%? I think it's probably around $25,000. So I think it would be about a doubling of where we're at now. Because the AMI for a one-person household, I think, is $102,000. Perfect. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, of course. All right. So we got 25%. I heard 30%, 35%, 40%, and 50%. So I'm just going to go through each of. Oh, sorry, 65%. Okay. What I actually want to do, I think that there are some that we can probably knock out right away. 25%. Who would support 25%? Okay, that's just 1. Okay, 65%. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to just knock out the ones that I only heard one person say. Okay, all right, thank you. I'm going to go down again now, 30%. Okay, 35%. Yeah, and yeah, you can vote for 2. That's fine. Yeah. Yes. 35%. The next one. Okay. 40%. Okay. And 50%. All right. 40% had the most. But let me try this again with 40% and 50% because one was 4, one was 3. So you can only choose one this time. So 40% or 50%. So raise your hand for 40%, please. Do you mean support the ballot measure eventually? Got it. I mean, you can do whatever you want when we come up for a vote. So, yeah. Okay, I think we got 6 there, and then 50%. Okay, so I think what we will move forward with then is proposing 40% for council members, the mayor pro tem, and then 50% for the mayor. Anybody have any final comments on the AMI and the percentages part? Yes, Tina.
I think I'll just comment that a concern I have is, and it's just when I think about a teacher or a paraeducator who they're salaried at a 40-hour week and can't really do a 20-hour week on top of that without taking a break from teaching or going to part-time, which will slow down their movement up their pre-negotiated pay schedule. And so when we talk about turning this into what feels to me more like a structured 20-hour week, which I don't think it has to be, but I do have some concerns about people who don't have kind of shift-based work like a barista or like someone who owns a consulting company who can really structure both of their schedules. There are a lot of people who do sort of the 9 to 5 good work every day. I don't think we're going to be able to, there is some benefit to really focusing on what Mayor Pro Tem Spear was saying about really getting to that 10 to 15 hours so that it would open the doors for this large swath of the population who don't have these flexible type of work, whether it's at the high end or the low end. But that being said, I hope that whatever we do attracts more people. So.
Yeah, and Lauren, and then Ryan.
Yeah, I agree that I would like to see us pursue that. I think that it is something that this council and previous councils have expressed interest in, and yet we have not been able to make very much change. A number of the additional boards and committees that we serve on do not allow flexibility, do not allow our participation to be optional, do not allow us to renegotiate the times in which they meet. So I think it is something that we definitely should aspire to, but I see that as a change that will take considerable time to enact. And this is something that has the possibility to allow more people to participate. It's not going to fix all the problems, but it is certainly a step in the right direction in terms of having a more diverse council body. Thanks.
And Ryan, you had a final comment?
Thank you. Just wanted to point out, Gina, to respond, is to what you said, that we're not contemplating a higher standard of hours or adding new requirements through this in any way. And for those who might seek to run for office, whether they're a teacher, a wage worker, a small business owner, it's essentially between them and the voters to tell their story. And to the extent that it might be awkward for a teacher to say, I'm going to have a full-time job teaching, and to explain that, I think, on the other hand, it will create so much more opportunity for others on average to make this possible that it's worth being open to a teacher with the full-time job doing this.
Thank you. And just a reminder, we will have an opportunity to discuss and debate when the measure comes back to us as well. So, all right. Then let's move on to the next question, just about the effective date. That, we talked about some different years here that it might start. And I guess the initial question is, should the effective date fall on January 1st of a given year? We can decide what that year is in a moment, but just so that it can coincides with our fiscal year, our annual budget cycle. And I guess if no, then we just need to figure out a different alternative. So any thoughts?
Woohoo! All right. So I actually would prefer, and again, I know it's complicated, but it already happens. I feel like it should be effective the day we start working, just like our insurance is effective that date, which is the day, yeah. And are we just talking about the date and not the year yet? Just the date. So my date would be the date we start working. Thank you.
Okay, basically swearing in date. Yep, I think it does vary is the thing. So I guess maybe that's a clarifying question for staff. Would it be challenging at all to?
It is usually the swearing in, which is first week of December.
Okay, great. Okay, so, okay, and you all could then figure out how to write a ballot measure on a date that we don't totally know yet, just
Correct.
like in December of whatever. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Does that sound good to everybody then? Swearing in date is what we would use as the day in the month. So be, yep, Matt.
I think my preference would be to lean towards where the tax season lies, because I think you want to start that fresh on like when you start counting your taxes, which I think is Jan 1, I believe. And so I think I believe that's the case. And so like it just seems weird that if you get like that 1 month and then it carries. I know it happens all the time. I just think it's just cleaner to just say start of the year, bang. And even when you get sworn in, you immediately go on winter recess, more or less. So anyway, I just think Jan 1 seems just a lot cleaner to me, and then you don't have to worry about the variance of what day everything starts.
Can I ask a question about that? So there would be, under that scenario, no pay from swearing in until January 1st?
I think maybe the idea that there would still be pay at the current rate, whatever it is at that point with the cost of living increase, and then it would switch in January 1st.
It's just the effective date for this going forward, and then at that point you're just getting paid.
For the first year?
Just trying to keep it clean, Jan 1. But if there's concerns about one meeting, then we can address that.
Lauren.
Yeah, I was going to just point out that because when someone is newly elected and sworn in, their pay changes anyway, it has tax implications already. And so I don't know that I think that makes sense. I think that it would make sense just to start it on the swearing in date, to me.
Okay, thank you. And, oh, yep.
I also want to add in, we had the one meeting, but we also had 9 hours of training. So there's also training that happens for the new board member or new council members. So again, we'd like to be paid for the time that we're working. Thank you.
And Tina, thank you.
Yeah, I think everything started at signing in. So having 2 dates, I think, would be confusing, because I think the health benefits started on the day we signed in.
All right. Any final comments? We got 2 options then. January 1st or signing in date. Anyone for January 1st as the date we start? The effective date. Are you interested in January 1st? After hearing the discussion, are you interested in January 1st as a date to start it? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I think then we've got for the swearing in date, everybody good with effective on the swearing in date, and then you will figure out how to write it for a date that we don't totally know when it's going to be. Okay, and then the starting year, what I heard, I think Taisha, you said 2026, so it doesn't impact anybody who is currently on this council. Does anybody have a different proposal?
Could I ask a clarifying
Yes.
question? So by 2026, would that actually be the, because now we're starting at the swearing in date, that would be, right, so December 2026?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So at the council, basically the council that is in place in December of 2026, following the November 2026 election. Okay. Yes, Tina.
If this does get placed on the ballot, we might want to clarify or think of a way to think about it as 2027, because you could really think about 3 of our terms ending in 26, so it might be a little confusing.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you. And so, Erin, at this point, do you all have what you need from us to move forward with creating a ballot measure?
I believe so. What I heard was 40% AMI for regular city council members, including the mayor pro tem, 50% AMI for the mayor, start date with the swearing in date that would occur in December 2026.
That sounds right. Okay, thank you. I think we can move on to the next one then.
All right. Well, our second item is executive sessions.
Sorry, Tina has one more question.
Is this going on being prepared for the ballot or due to a final?
So it will, so Erin kind of outlined the dates. It'll come back on August 1st and first reading, and then we'll have a public hearing currently scheduled for August 15th. That is the point where we would likely vote and decide whether or not to move it forward to the ballot.
All right. All right, thank you. I will move on to our second discussion item, which is executive sessions. Executive sessions are allowed by state law so that local public bodies may have non-public discussions of designated subjects. Executive sessions are only for deliberations, they're not for voting. In summary, the allowed situations for an executive session under state law are property transactions, attorney conferences, confidential matters under federal or state law, security arrangements or investigations, determining negotiation position or strategy, personnel matters, unless the subject employee requests an open meeting, review of documents protected by the Colorado Open Records Act, and interviews of finalists if there are also interviews in a public forum. The important point about executive sessions is that they would allow for a group discussion of these subjects. Currently, the city attorney's office uses memos and meets with 2 members at a time when we need to discuss legal issues, and there is not a current mechanism for council discussion. The city attorney's office recommends using the exact language of the statute so that we can use case law for interpretation. If we draft unique Boulder-specific language, we risk the court interpreting it in unexpected ways. All right. Procedurally, to allow for executive sessions, Charter Section 9 would be amended and a new Charter Section 22A would be created. As a cautionary note, we would need to develop procedures for executive sessions which must be followed very carefully. State law carries penalties for violations of the open meetings law. There are not criminal sanctions. However, sessions must be electronically recorded, and if a violation is alleged, the court reviewing the record will make public any portion that goes off topic, and a prevailing complainant must be awarded costs and attorney's fees. All right, and I will pause here. On the slide are questions from Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Thank you. So let's just start with any clarifying questions. Is there anything anybody wants to understand? Yes, Lauren.
I should have asked these ahead of time, but do you have any idea in the last year how many times we have done 2x2s?
I don't. Thinking about the previous year where I was co-acting, we had a couple issues, and I think we probably did it 2 or 3 times just within that 4 or 5 month period. So you all may know better than I do, but it is several times a year, plus memos.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like in my tenure on council, it's probably been less than a dozen times total. Anyway, that we've done 2x2s. Lots of memos, though. Thanks. That was my only clarifying question.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions? All right. Do we still want to move forward with the ballot measure related to allowing us to do executive sessions? Just show of hands, yes or no? Don't raise your hand. Okay. We got a majority that would like to move forward. And the next question then is, do we want to use the state guidance as is proposed? The alternative would be that we mess around with the law and try to do something that may, may be problematic. So do we want to use the state guidance as is proposed is the question. Okay, that's a yes. And then I guess this actually may be a question for you, Erin. What would be the effective date, or did you have one in mind, or are you looking for guidance from us there?
I think this is a place where January 1st could make a lot of sense. We'll get it in there somewhere. We are really the only city that does not have executive sessions. So there are procedures that every other municipality has already enacted that we'll be able to review and use. So we are not starting from a blank page with developing the procedures necessary to implement.
Great. And would that be January 1st of 2025 if it were to pass?
Correct.
Okay, great. Then, yes, Matt, you look like you've got a comment.
I just have a comment so it's on the record. all of the situations stated that executive session allows under Colorado revised statute are conversations we currently already have outside of the view of the public. We just have them in the least efficient and least effective way humanly possible without even having them at all. And this is exactly the kind of process improvement and efficiency our previous conversation was saying we should be committed to lessen the burden and lessen the amount of wasted work time that we are doing as a council. And when you have to schedule weeks of these 2x2s, that's one or 2 hours of that time that I don't get back. That and I'll say the most important part of this is in those 2x2s, we miss out on the collective wisdom of this body. There are times where I would love to know people outside of that 2x2, maybe what Mayor Pro Tem Spear or Councilmember Wallach has to say, and I miss out on that wisdom and that answer, and then I am less knowledgeable about that situation going into a decision. I can't imagine the community would want us at that level of insufficient knowledge to make what are critical decisions, which are usually held in executive session. So to me, I think we just want to put that on record that this is not giving us any new conversation or new thing. We're doing it. It's just in the least efficient and least effective way possible. So this streamlines that process like orders of magnitude.
Thank you, Matt. And Mark.
First, Matt, trust me, you're not missing out on a lot of wisdom from me. If you talk to our counterparts from any Front Range city, they literally think we're out of our minds, not having the ability to gather in executive session. Matt is correct. It is much more efficient. It is simply doing once what we have to do 4.5 times. And it makes no sense. It does not constitute decision-making out of sight of the public. It is simply the ability to discuss and consider certain matters, not all matters. And for me, this is a total no-brainer. I mean, we're just bringing ourselves into conformity with what everybody else is doing, and it makes eminent good sense for us to do it. And so I'm very, very supportive of this. I think it's necessary, and yes, it will contribute a little bit to saving some time and creating a greater efficiency on council and between council and staff. So I'm all in on this.
Thank you. And then Lauren, Ryan, and just a reminder again, we'll have time to debate in August as well. I'm just sensitive to wanting to get us done at 9.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment on the 2x2s being less efficient. No offense, but y'all take a long time to talk. When we have 9 of us meeting together, that actually lengthens the discussion significantly in the amount of time that I devote to it on any singular topic. Having 2x2s, while not for staff, for my time as a council member is actually more efficient, I would argue. I do understand the not getting, not having a fuller understanding of important things that other members might bring to the table, and I do appreciate that. But I think that the culture of our community is going to make this, and has made it in the past, very difficult to pass. And I would just strongly urge us to consider, you know, we're considering putting 2 fairly controversial items on one ballot, and they particularly might not play well together. And I would hate to see this jeopardize our chance at passing council pay. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have time to get to that one at the end too. Anyone else? I think we've given staff what we need, but if anybody else has a deep need to speak right now, yes, Taisha.
I just want to again echo having had the experience of being on Colorado Parks and Wildlife, where we do use executive session versus here for just even 7 months. And I'm eager to return to executive session, primarily because there is something about having the full team. Everybody brings a certain set of skills, and what happens in the 2x2 is that means I need to spend time on the follow-up with the people that weren't in the room for that perspective. And so it's still time spent. And I feel like having folks in that room at the same time is really powerful. So I agree that it is 9 opinions, but the quality of the decision I think is better when we have the opportunity to be in time, real time. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Erin, do you have what you need from us on this one then?
That is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. And I think we can move on to the last ballot measure.
All right. Well, our third and last item is a potential ballot item regarding council advisory boards and commissions. So first, a little background on Charter Section 130. This charter section sets forth the terms and eligibility for most boards and commissions as follows: that they have 5 or 7 members, terms of 5 years, members not all of one gender identity, members who are well known for their ability, probity, public spirit, and particular fitness to serve on such respective commissions, that are at least 18 years old, have resided in the city of Boulder for at least 1 year immediately prior to their appointment, and the board shall hold monthly meetings. The Council Board and Commission Subcommittee received. Okay, could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. The Council Board and Commission Subcommittee received input from a consultant and worked with the City Manager's Office and City Attorney's Office, resulting in this limited approach to give Council authority to make changes by ordinance to allow for greater flexibility in how boards and commissions function. The proposed amendments would keep the status quo, but would allow Council to act by ordinance to change provisions. If the ballot item were to pass, there would be no change for any board unless Council took a second action and passed or amended a board enabling ordinance. The proposal would only impact boards that are formed under Section 130 or to the extent that the enabling charter section cites to Section 130. So for example, if Council wanted to allow the Housing Advisory Board to have members who live outside Boulder, or who are under 18, or who resided in Boulder for less than 1 year, you would be able to do that by ordinance. And you could vary it by board and commission. If you felt you wanted to change it for one board, you could do that. It would not necessarily apply to all boards, only those changed by ordinance. Okay, and next slide, thank you. Not all boards would be impacted to the same extent if the ballot item passes. There are some boards that are special in our charter, and those with individual charter sections are the Arts Commission, which specifies 7 members in a 5-year term, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, also 7 members in a 5-year term, the Open Space Board of Trustees with 5 members in 5-year terms, and the Planning Board with 7 members in 5-year terms. These requirements cannot be changed by amending ballot item or ballot section 130, charter section 130. These could only be changed by amending those charter sections shown on the slide. However, these boards cite to section 130 for the eligibility of their members, being not all of one gender identity, residency, and age, so that by changing Charter Section 130 as proposed, you could make those changes. So for example, Council could decide to only have a 6-month residency requirement for the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and implement that change by ordinance. Okay, and next slide, please. Charter Section 130 also addresses the authority of Council to remove members, except for the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the Open Space Board of Trustees, Planning Board, and the Arts Commission, which have their own removal language. So for other boards and commissions, Charter Section 130 currently includes the provision that the Council shall have the power to remove any commissioner for non-attendance to duty or for cause. The proposed language is all board and commission members serve at the pleasure of Council. The Council may remove members for non-attendance to duties, conduct unbecoming a member, and any other reason not prohibited by law. The proposal attempts to have language that's more consistent with the ordinance 2-3-1, which authorizes Council to remove any member by majority vote for conflict of interest violations, any other violation of applicable law, regulation, or policy, non-attendance to duty, failure to attend 3 consecutive regularly scheduled meetings without a leave of absence approved by a majority of the board or commission, or any other cause. All right, thank you. And I will pause here. On the slides are questions presented from Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
All right, thank you so much. Clarifying questions. I see Tara, Tina, Matt, Ryan.
So my question is if we go back to the language, can we go back one slide, whoever's in charge of? How important is all board and commission members serve at the pleasure of council? Do we need to have that?
I think you could delete that sentence and still have the spirit of the transparency, to show really what the relationship is between boards and council. Boards are there to help council, except for those enumerated ones with their own specific charter section. They're really there to advise you. And I think that carries through with the remainder of the language.
Do you want me to say later why I asked for that during comments?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Any other, oh, sorry, there were, Tina, you were next.
Yeah, when, and I'm not sure if anyone's ever removed someone from a board, but is there a public hearing with that removal?
It depends on the reason for the removal. There have been 2 in recent history. One was due to actions of the board member, essentially cause, and one was for the application process not vetting certain criteria. So the person who was alleged to have violated a cause kind of scenario, that person was given a hearing in front of council.
Okay. And that's all spelled out?
No, I'm not sure. How do you mean by spelled out? We don't have specific council rules about how to remove. So we kind of developed it as was needed for that special circumstance. And it is very, very rare to have a removal. That was a unique year, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Then I've got Matt.
Thank you. Just to be clear, nothing in here is intending to impact the Arts Commission, Parks and Rec, Open Space, or Planning Board with regards to the charters specific to defining those boards and commissions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then Ryan.
What is cause in this sense? I mean, what's the limits, the scope of cause? Where does cause end and then it's something else?
Cause we look at it as, is there a code of conduct violation? Have they not attended to duties? Have they failed to attend meetings? I think potentially could be behavioral if there was truly a harassing situation or hostile situation. So there is a reason where their behavior or their performance is not hitting the mark.
Okay, and not a philosophical or political conflict with the makeup of the majority of the council.
Correct.
Yeah.
That would be provided under 2-3-1 or any other reason.
Okay.
So it exists. Under 2-3-1, you do have the authority to remove for no reason.
Okay, thanks.
And just a quick colloquy on that. That is currently the case, right? That's not a proposed change here. That is currently the case. We currently have that ability.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And then I see Lauren.
I just wanted to colloquy on that. It seems, and because this comes up so rarely, it's hard to really know, but it seemed like we have really leaned on looking at the allowances that are specifically called out for removal, as opposed to, none of the previous, as far as I know, we haven't done a removal for cause without that sort of more specific reference to something that is written out in the code for a sort of a more exact action.
And interestingly, the one removal that was fairly recent was under one of those specified unique enumerated boards. And so we were looking at their specific charter language as well. So it wouldn't have been just Charter Section 130. We were also looking at, I believe it's 173.
So I guess my question is, from a legal point of view, what would be the benefits or concerns to sort of changing the language as you've suggested? Does that make any particular kinds of removals easier to defend or something like that?
Yes, and if you have to prove cause, like if it's the non-attendance to duty or failure to attend 3 meetings, then we have to prove that they didn't attend 3 meetings and weren't excused. So, well, did they email the chair? And the chair, what is excusal? So every time you have to prove something, it can spiral off. And I guess one other section is, or one other point, is that we also use this language in training boards and commission members and in looking for good behavior from them. So it's also a transparency issue so that they understand what their relationship is to council. And it is at council's appointment and with council priorities that they work on.
Okay, so I guess I'm just trying to think of some examples that don't fall under that specifically, sort of that specific language that we already have laid out. For instance, if a board or commission member was saying very appropriate things, maybe racist language towards other members on a board or commission or members of the public, does this change how we would be able to deal with that situation?
I think so. I think by having it explicitly in the charter language, for one thing, it helps that person understand that that kind of conduct that is unbecoming is not allowed.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? Okay, show of hands for who still wants to move forward with the ballot measure that allows us to implement some of the recommended changes to boards and commissions. Raise your hand if yes. All right, I got everybody there. Do we want to move forward with the proposed amendments? I'm thinking about the removal changes separately. Do we want to move forward with the proposed amendments? Sorry. So there was a. Do you want to maybe put up, Erin, if you wouldn't mind, or sorry, whoever's controlling the slides, if you would take us back. I think it was 2 slides,
I
maybe
think it's
3.
12.
One more. Yes. One more. There we go. Okay, basically just setting it up so that we would be able to, and thank you for getting the slide, so that we would be able to make changes to boards and commissions except for the 4 that are on the next slide through an ordinance, which I expect would involve a public hearing and everything as well. So it wouldn't sort of be undercover or anything like that. It would be out in the open. We'd be making those changes. So this would allow us to make those changes through an ordinance change. It would not implement any changes in the ballot measure, but it would give us the authority to make changes through an ordinance. So show of hands, who is in favor of this part? Okay, we got everybody there. And then if we could go to the removal piece. Tara, would you like to speak to your comment earlier about removing that first sentence in the proposed language?
Even though, well, the thing is if you're an attorney, then this language is totally fine. But most of the people that live in the city are an attorney. Well, actually, probably a lot of them are, to be honest. But assuming that you're not an attorney, that first line seems annoying. And I want this to pass. So I don't, if it's not necessary, I don't know why we should have it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want me to explain what I mean by annoying?
I don't know. Does anybody need that? So what I'm basically hearing is Tara is proposing that we strike that first sentence. Since Erin has said that would be okay for us to do, we would still capture the spirit. So if everybody is okay with that change, and just raise your hand quickly, if that seems okay. All right, cool. And then are folks comfortable with moving forward with changing this language as well and including that in the ballot measure? Bless you. All right, we got folks there. Oh, yep, okay, wonderful. Okay, and effective dates on this one, January 1st, 2025. Does that sound right to everyone? I'm seeing lots of nodding heads. It is. We'll have a good New Year party, right? Okay. Then, Erin, do you have what you need from us on this measure?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Then the last thing that I just wanted to ask folks is we basically talked about 3 that we are, oh, sorry, yes, go ahead.
Can I have one more slide to go over first?
Oh,
And then
yes,
I'll turn it back
yes,
to you?
please. Oh, yeah,
So for
thank you.
next steps and a cautionary note, we are super tight on time. We're always tight every year, but originally first reading was going to be July 18th. And with the extended break, first reading is now August 1st. Second reading and public hearing August 15th. If we need it, third reading or continued second reading on September 5th. And then it is pencils down September 5th because the ballot has to be certified to the Boulder County Clerk September 6th. So if it's not done on the 5th, it's not going to be this year.
Can I clarify? This is for all 3 ballot measures? This is for everything? So
everything.
We got to be, this is effectively
time to
Sharpie.
Commit. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Lauren, do you have a clarifying question on the dates and things?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that this seems like an item that maybe could use some memos before August 1st, just so that we have a chance to see the language ahead of time, since the timeline is so tight.
Duly noted.
Tina.
For the August 1st meeting, will we have the whole ballot landscape? So putting these 3 visually with the airport and then anything the county might be running as well, so we can get an idea of what our voters are going to be looking at as a whole.
I can't speak to the county dates. I don't know when they have their documents scheduled, but yes to the airport, that the same deadlines apply to the airport. I'll be reaching out to them about the ballot and title and ordinance for those 2 that have been certified tonight. And they will also need to be passed as ordinances with a public hearing.
And I'd be happy to reach out to the commissioners and see when they expect it, but we do not have control over their timing.
Thank you. Any other questions about this last slide and timing specifically?
Thank you. So on the question that one of the public commenters had earlier on the airport ballot initiative, in which we have theoretically options to consider, have we done that today? There is no more time to do that, or is
You're running out of time.
And what I will say is we've got a CAC meeting Monday morning, our last one before the break. So if anybody feels that there should be time for us to discuss those, comment, whatever, that would make for a good CAC email, I would expect. Okay, so with that, then what I want to do now is not relitigate any of the individual ballot measures because we've already talked them through, but we've got 3 that we are talking about moving forward to an August 1st first reading. And my question is, thinking about them as a package as a whole, does anybody have any or want to make a case for not moving one or more forward when considering the others? So if we think about all 3 together, are there any interactions or things that people are concerned about? Again, not relitigating the individual things that we've already talked about, but rather thinking about this as a package. Is there anything that anyone has concerns about or would like to bring up? Lauren.
I mean, I already mentioned it, but I do have concerns with having both council pay and, oh my God, my brain is gone, executive session on the same ballot, and I would encourage us to consider having them on different ballots. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would be interested in not moving forward with something out of concern for having multiple measures on the same ballot?
My only concern is with this one. I think it's a little more opaque in some respects and a little harder to understand. But having said that, I support it, but it may be a little bit of sensory overload for some voters. But again, at the end of the day, I would still say, let's do this because I think it's an important thing to do.
Okay, and when you say this one, were you referring to the last one, the boards
The
and
last one.
commissions? Okay, thank you.
Number 3.
All right. Anybody else have any other thoughts on this topic? Okay, show of hands for anyone who would like to move forward with fewer than the 3 that we talked about tonight. All right, thanks, Lauren. Looking a little lonely over there tonight. We gotta get some more hands over there. We all have those nights. Okay, so Erin, then do you have everything that you need from us in order to move forward? And is there anything else you'd like us to know?
No, I think I have everything I need. Just be aware of the dates when we come back. And it is pencils down, September 5th.
Okay, thank you. Yep, and we ought to have the preliminary packet 2 weeks before the 1st, right? So around the time that we're starting to pick up our heads again after a recess.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So just encourage all of us to make sure that we're looking at that and get our questions answered. I expect that, as always, we can reach out to staff with questions if we have them.
Absolutely.
Before then. Okay, great. Thank you so much, and thanks for all your help with bringing these forward so quickly. And thank you to the Charter Committee and the Board and Commissions Committee for all of your work as well. All right, I believe that wraps up our matters from the city manager. We don't have anything under matters from the city attorney or mayor and the members of council. Discussion items, anything under debrief? Oh, yes. Someone? Oh, sorry. I thought someone was pointing. Okay, yes. All right.
Sorry, I'm lifting up because I. Oh, there we go. So sorry. In your packet is the notes for the first council chat. So I wanted to lift those up and speak to one. Thank Jamal for hosting it at Brooklyn Barber and the staff for coordinating across both our Office of Belonging, which has our equity business manager, as well as our communications and engagement team. So I want to go ahead and thank them. And I just wanted to lift up a couple of specific recommendations that that these business owners wanted to make sure that was on your radar screen. One was around just the distinction between small and micro businesses. That was really something that came up, those businesses of 10 people and less, and just recognizing that there is a gap in services for those specific types of businesses. There's also significant interest around additional technical support. This is in addition to what is already being provided by the Chamber, the Latino Chamber, the Boulder Chamber. Many of us are a part of all of those different ones, and there really is a meaningful role that the city can play for small businesses. So I'm excited to have some of our council representatives that have extensive backgrounds in different intersections of business. Mark, I know I introduced you specifically just around some of the real estate issues that were coming up for small businesses and how they can be rather predatory. And so having people with that level of experience is really meaningful. The second area that I wanted to lift up was just more visibility for businesses that are on the West End. And again, I thought that was a very interesting, because that was something we also hear from other businesses that are not micro and small. So just recognizing that the West End continues to be an area that we need to make sure that we are creating opportunities where businesses can thrive. And then lastly was on the levels of engagement. And so they are all appreciated. Sorry. I just was reading the notes say the West End. The representatives that were there were mostly from the West End. So I suspect that that might have skewed this particular piece of data, which actually goes back to their request for more engagement of the business community, recognizing that sometimes when we have our meetings with businesses during the day, during the business day, that they're not able to join those meetings. And so as we look to increase the economic vitality for the Boulder Valley Comp Plan, et cetera, I'm hopeful that we can identify creative and meaningful ways to engage our micro businesses. So thank you so much, and thank you, Tina, for joining me on that. It was just really wonderful, and you can tell, that they were very eager and excited and were eager for more. So I also want to thank Patrick, our business equity manager, for extending opportunities to continue to engage and co-develop what the strategies are to meet some of the acute challenges that they have. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And if y'all haven't been out yet for the Sundays on West Pearl, it's pretty fun. Nice little crafts and things going on around the new local and beyond. Okay, then.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Just a quick, if we're in a debrief discussion item, wherever that fits in, I'm going to ask for forgiveness later, take a cue out of Councilmember Adams's book. Just wanted to get back to the question that was posed during open comment. I had an opportunity to touch base with Interim Chief Redfern and wanted to confirm that, in fact, we have not had drive-bys, neither in North Boulder nor in any part of the city, certainly in all of his tenure and in recent memory. PD could only remember an incident 25 years ago. And so, again, if we had something, we would let you know. So,
yeah, thank you so much for that update and getting that information so quick.